party people all over the world, homeboys, fly guys, and pretty girls. Welcome to the Black Prospector Show. And I am the Black Prospector with another episode of Every Black Man Has a Story. Now, today's story, you're going to hear one that I've been sitting on for a few months. I had to go back and listen to a lot of it again, but it was one that I was really excited about airing. And I've been on a little bit of a hiatus as the 9 to 5 has been kicking my tail like nobody's business. And it's a pretty busy season around my house. My son is getting married soon in a few weeks, so we just have a lot going on. But I have this interview that I've been sitting on with my brother. And it's a very special interview for me. Having the opportunity to interview the men in my immediate family has been a tremendous blessing. So you've heard an interview from my dad. Now you're going to hear an interview from the other man in the house, and that is my brother. Now, for you military guys out there that's checking out the show, well, first for everyone else, like and subscribe. Y'all know the routine that everybody talks about on YouTube. Like and subscribe below. And also, if you're listening to this on the podcast, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. You can find it on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to all of your podcasts. You can go ahead and subscribe to the Black Prospector Show. But back to what I was about to say, for you military guys out there that check out the show. First, there's another show that my brother appeared on talking about TRT, and certainly his experience, my experience on TRT, but even what he went to get onto TRT while in the military, but also the fact that you're going to hear a lot about his military experience, how it was being a father in the military, how he ended up going into the military in the first place, and is he the same guy that he was when he first went in? Is he even the same guy that he was when he retired just a few years ago? The answer may surprise you. You're going to hear about his experience when he went out for the Special Forces on the Marine Corps or in the Marine Corps. So he just has a ton to say about his time period in the military, how he was treated, how he dealt with being a father in the military, and multiple deployments to Iraq. So also, just to kind of give you another preview, I have another episode coming up with another friend of mine who served in Vietnam. So you're going to have the opportunity to hear from two gentlemen that have served the country in the military. And let me just say, their experiences and what they experience inside there, not only as someone who is serving the country, but as someone who also now encounters civilians that on one hand say, thank you for your service. But on the other hand, they also know how racist many of the people are that may make that very statement to them. Very fascinating to hear the guys really kind of discuss how they look at it now that they're out of that military environment. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Again, like and subscribe for more stories. Got a lot more coming up in the near future. Finally getting this one posted, and I'm glad I am. I mean, my heart was just glad even listening to it because, it's funny. Obviously, you grow up in your house. My brother stayed home until he was 18, but you're going to hear a story on how there was a little bit of lapse in there, and you're going to find out why. So my brother still, let's just say overall, until he went into the Marines, at 18, obviously we're in the house together growing up. I'm 6 years older than he is, but his wisdom far surpasses mine with his experience that he's had. And I learned so much about him. It's pretty much the same thing I said when I looked back at the interview with my father. I can say surely that maybe 80% of the things that they talked about, perhaps I already knew. And my brothers, it was actually a little bit less because we've been away from each other for so long. But it is just that minority of information, that minority percentage of information that is truly a changer. It's one that teaches me about how they think, about how they are, and how they are as men. And the great part, after talking to both of them, I have a newfound respect for the men that they are today. And that makes me a better man. And I hope it makes you a better man as well when you listen to their experience, because that's what we're doing it. That's what we're all about on Every Black Man Has a Story. So I'll be right back, and join me as we get to another episode of Every Black Man Has a Story. And you're about to listen to the story from my brother, Damone. Oh yeah, one more thing I forgot to mention. Now the sound may get a little janky at parts in there, so don't worry, my apologies. Certainly we were doing the best that we could. Every now and then there was a little bit of snap, crackle, and popping. I mean, even while I'm sitting here, I told y'all 9 to 5 is no joke. They're blowing me up even now. So maybe some bandwidth or internet issues. So bear with us, especially for those who are going to be checking out the entire thing and not the shorter clips. But it's not you, it's definitely on our end. So don't worry, it smooths out. I amped up the volume a little bit more to help and assist with everything. So thanks for your patience. And I'm getting all of this figured out. We're going to work it out. And the sound quality is going to get better and better as we continue to do the show. Thanks again. Welcome everyone to the Black Prospector Show. I am the Black Prospector here with another episode of Every Black Man Has a Story. Now, today I am definitely excited because the Black man story we're going to listen to is a story by somebody who is very near and dear to me. And it is my brother's story. Now, this is probably, you are definitely the youngest person's story that we've had on here thus far. And so I'm definitely excited about this because we've certainly had some stories by our dad. We've had some stories by our uncle. And so now it's kind of, we're going to move down into someone who's younger than me. And so I did not want to start talking to anyone of the younger generation before I started talking to you first, because although, you are my brother, that, man, the respect I have for you and the wisdom that you have is just, it's out there. And I got to have that on the show because you always, as I always say, you make me feel smarter when I'm done talking to you. So I definitely wanted to get a recording done with you because you have a lot of life experiences that we're going to get into, and you have stories for days. And so I think this is going to be perfect as I start now also getting the stories from other Black men that are, I hope that are going to be relatable, because I think a lot of times when people listen to a lot of older guys talk, it's like, oh, well, these dudes made 70s and stuff. All right. That's one thing. But now I want guys to hear from someone that's really their contemporary, because, there's another level of being able to relate. It's one thing when dudes are talking about what they did in the 50s and 60s, but now we're about to kick it about life in the 70s and 80s. And certainly your memory is far better than mine, always has been. So I'm going to just say this, and then I'm going to introduce you specifically. As everyone always says, if you're watching this, listening to it, like and subscribe. As they say, likes don't cost you anything on the channel. So feel free just to like and subscribe for more. But let me introduce my brother, Damone. And thank you, brother, for joining me today. And as always, we're going to chop it up, but I am just going to let you introduce yourself if you want to say your age or any other quick background. And then I want you to just go in with a quick story about yourself.
All right. Hey, appreciate you having me on. Thanks for the invite. Glad we got finally had a chance to connect. So about me, you already gave my name. 45, of course, originally from Detroit, down here in Tennessee now. Been down south most of the time when I either wasn't in Iraq or something like that. I've pretty much been in the South since I left home at 18. So as you know, left home right from 18th birthday, joined the Marine Corps, did 4 years, came back home briefly, about 6 months, was looking at going to the police department, and then went and joined the Army. Spent 19 and a half years in the Army, retired, got my undergrad, currently in grad school, 3 classes left. And, that's me in a nutshell. Married, 3 kids, 2 grown, 1's a junior.
All right, cool. Now we can go ahead. That was a 30,000-foot view. So let's go ahead. We're about to jump out the plane, and we'll go in a little bit deeper, man. So, as I said, your memories, and this is why I was so excited to talk to you, because it really gives me a chance. And every now and then when we talk as well, I'm always fascinated, because obviously being older, I view history differently than you do. because I had one set of eyes. I'm 6 years older than everyone. I'm 6 years older than he is. And so I viewed things and viewed the exact same experience totally different than you may have viewed it, just because of where we are in birth order and our age. So I'm excited to even some of the things and the stories and the reflections that you're going to give. I'm excited to hear your point of view on some of these. So I like to start out the way that I do with really many of the stories. Tell me a story about, it's funny because you like remember stuff when, I think I remember my earliest memories was Mrs. Gold class in kindergarten. So I can remember till I'm back to 5. You be like telling stories. I'm like, man, you were like 3 years old. And how in the world do you remember that? So as your earliest memories growing up in the D, I'm going to say, when you look back growing up in that city, what's one of the probably things that jumped out at you that shaped you as a young man? I really would say, let's start before we get to a young man. I'm going to say a young child, let's say under 10 years old.
I'll say it would have to be when Sean stole my bike.
Oh, wow.
Example. And here's why. For your audience, Granddaddy just bought, me and Dee those bikes, those Schwinn's from Sears, right? And we were out there in front of the Nicole and them house, and this guy we don't know comes up and asks us, can he catwalk our bikes, right? So we're pretty young then, and Dee was on my bike, I was on her yellow Schwinn with the banana seat, and we told him, no, we can't let no one ride our bikes on it. He pushed Dee down and took off with my bike. So the significance of that, though, is, we ran home crying, and I think Mama grabbed you. And was it you? I can't remember. But she drove, she prayed, and she ended up getting led all the way to his house on the other side of Schultz, down there by Eileen in like 6 Mile, and found my bike and found their house, right? And we had no idea other than like he went that way. So that was, something that I was amazed by. Like, she prayed and ended up going straight to the house, and they recovered my bike and all, and Daddy had put it back together and everything. So that was one really impacted me, because I was pretty amazed by that. Like how she found that so quick. I mean, it was like less than an hour.
So was it? So it was probably more the power of prayer.
Oh, definitely.
That she got led to the bike than even the fact that he stole your bike.
Oh yeah, that's it. So through that, that was just at a young age, seeing that power of prayer and something that directly affected me that I understood. That was definitely something that impacted me at a young age, early age.
Wow. So I'm just going to throw in some of mine, because again, I'm fascinated by this. I honestly don't even remember that, but I remember my own fight with Sean in the bathroom in elementary school, and then that went actually pretty well. And it was like, once I beat his behind in the bathroom, I felt better, because here was a dude that was smaller than me, was like always bullying everybody in the neighborhood. And of course, we remember Daddy paying our cousin to beat him up after church.
I remember that.
It didn't go over too well, but I don't know what happened to Sean Pendleton. I don't know. He probably locked up, maybe dead right now, or maybe he's the CEO of a company. But it's amazing that the same dude that terrorized me, and then here it is 6 years later, and there may be somebody else you bring up a little later, same thing. Man, it's like these dudes were career criminals back then, because with the big age difference between us, I had beef with him, and then here it is comes along, you had beef with him as well.
I didn't even know who he was. Didn't know, the history, obviously with our family back then. So.
Yep. Well, so what kind of kid were you? When you think back, going to those days, those years of being, especially in Detroit at such a young age. Obviously, you had to be in a case that at that age, I think many kids, no matter where they live, they deal with crime. But Did that shape you in any way? Did you feel safe growing up in that neighborhood? Did it shape you now that you reflect back on it now? Did growing up there or some of the encounters have an impact to how you view life today?
There were definitely other encounters like with Ron and things like that that impacted me from that incident, having to go to court. I don't even think I ever told mom and daddy he pulled a gun out on me in the gym. I don't know if I told you how that afterwards. Yeah, after the court.
No.
Yeah.
So, see, I told y'all I'm gonna be learning stuff today.
So after all of that stuff with the court, you know, him robbing my friend and me testifying against him and all this stuff. So his little brother or nephew swung on me outside one day, trying to get something started, squashed that. And then one day I'm in the gym. Now he was barred from the gym by the judge, if you remember from the court hearing. Man, he was in the gym, and this one guy they call Suge from that gang brings up a bag, and I'm on basketball court at the center, and in the middle of the center across the gym, he reaches in, grabs a gun, and goes like this and points it at me across the gym. So I take off running and everything, and dodge in, and then he puts it back. They start laughing and stuff. Yeah. I didn't even tell anybody about that.
Wow.
Yeah. So. And eventually, of course, then from right shortly after that, I was in Arizona. So.
Is this why? And now I'm jumping forward myself, but so y'all, this is gonna be very conversational. I'm letting y'all know this now because it's bringing stuff back with me. But is this why when we started training together, when I think you came back, so from between being in the Marines and the Army, and we were training at the center again, you were looking for him. Because by then, of course, you were swole. And by then, you know, you bench press at 315, like you said, before your nuts drop. So you ready to go. And I just remember you would go through that gym like, where he at? Where he at?
I remember that. I'm sure I did. Like me, but, oh, yeah, it's definitely related to all of that. But, yeah, I remember that part. That was like 6 months. I had that break in between branches. So, yeah. I forgot about that one though.
Oh man, yeah, I remember you came back. I was like, man, it's been all these years later, and he's still looking for Ron. I mean, that dude.
No, that beef continues. Yeah.
And every black person watching this show is like, yeah, we knew a Ron. We knew a Ron. Every hood had a Ron, had a Pookie, had a Moochie, you know. So yes. So all right, if we fast forward now, actually, before we go there, because I think it's going to probably come in a little bit later as well. Looking back, even from a schooling perspective, you know, going at that time to, I know you went to a public school. How was your experience going there?
Okay, so we were at Fairlane, and when you graduated, and I was in the 6th going into the 7th, that was culture shock. So I went from fighting basically white boys at Fairlane and Dearborn, you know, they yell out their little racial slurs that they had picked up and all. And next thing you know, I'm fighting over it. To then I go to presentation in the 7th grade. And first thing, you know, those guys are there. You know, I've been out, we've been a predominantly white school. So, you know, first thing you talk to proper, you sound white, all that stuff. So you ain't getting picked on there and bullied. But by then, you know, I wasn't, I was really surprised the difference in size with folks. But I got to, because it kind of everybody had the high pitched voice still in 6th grade, everything at Fairlane and all. By the time I got to 7th grade, it was dudes already hitting 6 feet in presentation and everything, like been in puberty for years. Yeah, everything got facial hair. I'm like, you know, man, these folks, you know, like look grown to me back then. And so that was hard to adapt to, because when you playing sports or you getting picked on or whatever else, and again, it's like going against a grown man, or basically a junior high against a high schooler. Because I was definitely a late bloomer. Remember, I shot up like almost 7 inches over my 10th grade year. So
That's true.
So I went to, I was like 5'2". Yeah, around 5'2". I remember in ninth grade. And then by 11th grade, I was 5'10". So I shot up, yeah. So I grew quite a bit in Arizona.
Wow. So, okay, let's move. We move from now. Maybe we'll just say that we'll say 10 to, because I think the big pivotal change is going to be obviously when you turn 18. So let's now go from maybe 10 to 17. What kind of kid were you? What influenced you? What shaped you? And what's probably the biggest story that you take away looking back? If you had to write a book from the time you were 10 to 17, what would that book probably be titled, or what would be the main topic of that book?
Oh boy, I want to say this one. Chaos or dysfunction, probably be the best. I won't say household. I'll leave it on me. Yeah, dysfunction. No, we'll go with chaos.
I feel like the EPMD song, Total Chaos and Mass Confusion.
There you go. That sums it up perfect. There are just so many contributing factors, things I thought about over the years, how they shaped me from those experiences. It was a growing process. Again, I mean, you look from that age, I went from Fairlane presentation to Fobian, right? And to 17, to Arizona, come from Arizona, and now I'm in Murray Wright. That's practically ran by the old JBI crew, Jeffrey Boys Incorporated from the projects. And, so I had a culture shock, about every 2 years, it seemed like. As I moved around a little bit to school and stuff.
So,
and then,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and then just home and everything else. Just looking back, there are definitely things that kind of shaped me. And I was actually just telling my son this. We got this MMA grappling dummy and filled it up. I was like 6 feet, practiced jujitsu on. And I was telling them how mom and daddy had bought me that punching bag from Dick's Sporting Goods, because I was like punching holes and stuff, at like 16, 17. And then I would get big bags of rock salt. I was punching those and hands all bloody and stuff. And they finally went out and bought me a punching bag. And, it was obviously some things going on, now again with the psych background, I can see, there've been like some red flags, like, hey, you need to talk to somebody. So that's why I say there's definitely some things that impacted me that came out, and as I've learned through other interviews with other counselors and things like that for projects. One, just men in general, how we display certain things and how they come out, are sometimes drastically different. What we display and then what we internalize. Which one is anger? What comes out as anger is not always because we're just angry. It's because you can be dealing with hurt, but it'll come out in anger for us. For some people, I'll say that is definitely one I learned years later with myself, and I could definitely trace it back to those years.
Is there anything in particular you want to share that made you that you felt participated, I guess I'll say, in that anger? Because on one end, for a Black man between 10 and 17, that seems to be such a pivotal age where you're just learning about yourself.
Right.
And on one end, it's like, when you're a parent, you're like, what you got to be angry about? You're a little kid, you ain't got to. But when you're a kid, And sometimes things do happen to us as kids that we do deserve to be angry about. So again, as I always tell all my guests, statute of limitations is only what you're comfortable sharing. But is there anything in particular that you feel comfortable, even if it's like an experience that you happen with Ron or Sean, anything? And I think the neighborhood, it was, anything in particular that you would feel comfortable about being angry about, that you felt really, now that you look back at it, played a role?
Oh, well, definitely. Our household, and when you're that age and you don't have a fully grasp everything. However, when you see your mama hurt, or things are getting expressed to you probably more than they shouldn't, or you're observing more than you should. I think at that age, it's natural for a son to want to protect their mother. Can we pause real quick? Sorry, got to edit that out.
Okay.
So
took a little pause there. So you go ahead and pick up with the story, everyone.
So I'll say during that time period, some things going on in the household definitely impacted me. One thing I'm cognizant of now that I'm older, and what I'll say, really pay attention to when the kids were younger, for example, especially with my son, is it don't matter if mama's dead wrong. If he see his mama crying and daddy caused it, or you think daddy caused it, how they, because I know how I internalize it. And I remember one day, my wife suffers from migraines really bad. And one of the earlier memories I have of my son, he's always been video game, in video games when he was younger. Maine's probably 7 years old, and Tamika's in the other room crying and all over her migraines. And she wasn't even really crying, but she was hurting real bad, making noise and stuff and moans and everything. And I'm trying to close the door, try to hide it from them. And I look, and Damon's got tears running down his eyes, and like beating up on the guy in the wrestling game because he's hearing his mama crying. So, it kind of made me reflect on some things as well. Growing up, as a little older, is we want to protect our mothers and all, and so I can say I definitely internalized, different things, and again, just self-examining, looking at incidents, and think back. Something I discussed with your mother. I remember she used to have to go to work, and I didn't know, probably to about, it wasn't even 10 years ago now, that she used to bawl all the way to like 9 Mile Road crying. And I was like, that's funny, because me and Dee would be in there crying and worried about you, praying together, and locking all doors. I'm getting knives and machetes out, and everything, because we worried something's going to happen to her. And I wasn't even thinking about us. And granted, I was like, 10, 12 tops. And, but it was both of us. Dee and I were worried about mama, but she was worried about us crying. And I remember, man, I cried. She came home one day and was warming up at the kerosene heater. She was so cold that heat went out in the spirit, man. And again, I internalized that because mama was hurting, man. I ran room crying, because she was just trying to get warm. And I was mad she had to go to work. Me and Dee are there by ourselves. But I realized later that did shape me in ways of really my experience in combat. Had it on, didn't help it. But I think even before combat and different things, being very protective, and because I realized, hey, at a very young age, we were at home and by ourselves, and I had to at that age. I don't know what I would have did if somebody tried to come up in there, but at least back then I thought I was going to do something. I had my machete, and I had like 30 knives back then. I had my little knife collection going on. But that's where the weapons thing came in. I traced back doing some psychology work one day, and kind of thought about it. But those experiences, I definitely think help shape me, and later on into the military and things like that. Fuel some things.
You just made me think about something that I haven't pieced together. Certainly not in our home, but I'm going through this guy Rollo Tomasi's book right now called Religion, and the basic premise of his book is just how religion has been shaped now by culture instead of the other way around, particularly male-female relationships. That's what he writes about. And so, or as he called it, intersexual dynamics. And one of the main things that he just pointed out in this book, and he said this in prior books, is that love flows downhill. Man loves a woman, woman loves a child. And so if we viewed it like that, that doesn't mean that a woman doesn't love her man, but that means that the love let's put it like this: that "I'll die for you" love doesn't go to her man, that goes to her children. The man has that "I'll die for you" love for his wife, and then that "I'll die for you" love for his children. So he was pointing out that whether we want to argue about this pretty much from a religious perspective or whether we want to argue about it from an evolutionary perspective, one thing is true: ingrained in us as men that women capitalize on is knowing that in us innately we want to defend a woman. And
Yes.
so even if we see a woman that we have no idea who she is, she's just a complete stranger, but immediately when we see her scream, or hear her scream rather, or see her get attacked, we as men feel like, I got to go help. I got to go help solve this. And we even see this on YouTube videos. The first thing people will be putting in the comments is, how come none of those men stepped in? How come none of where those? But no one ever asked another woman, how come you didn't step in to help?
And it's in combat too.
Really? So
yeah, I actually had a female tell me that. That was the biggest thing she had noticed, is whenever something occurred, here was a man, no matter if she was one of their soldiers, like even if she was senior to them, some man felt like they had to come protect her, make sure she was okay. Things that didn't happen even to a younger male soldier, but it's like this, she says instinct, but belief that they have to protect the woman there. So yeah, I agree.
How much more does that then come into, like you said, when it's your mom? Even at a young age, it's there. Even just still, you as a male child is like, because I wonder, if we were to talk to Dee, if she would have felt that same thing. She probably would have, to a certain degree, but not nearly as much as what you felt. Yeah. So man, I never thought of it from that angle, because it goes to show, outside of us being socialized that way, how much more, even at a young age. And I'm just throwing it out there, especially to my single dads out there, or if you're a dad out there going through a divorce and you're like, we get into parental alienation syndrome and things like that. It's hard you want to be mad at the kids, and I've been there. You want to be mad at the kids because it's like they always running to defend mom. And so a lot of men will cut off the kid and the mom, because it's like, this kid is now sided with mom. But especially if that's your son, I mean, they're fighting not only what they've been socialized to do, but what they're actually biologically wired to do naturally, which is to defend that woman, even if she's wrong. You could take a prostitute crackhead mama, and yet her son, Dwayne Wade, I remember hearing that story about Dwayne Wade. The son is still going to feel like, I got to take care of mom. I got to take care of mom. So that's a good point, man. I hadn't thought about it from that way, even inside our own home.
And I'll say I've instilled that in my son. So, his priority, especially with me being deployed for extended periods, even when he was little, it was like, okay, I got it. Your mother's your mom's, the adult, but you're in charge. And sometimes I tell him, like, you're the man of the house while I'm gone. And he'd be daddy comes up, yeah, I see him still check the locks and do all that stuff. He was doing all that at a young age for everybody with the bed and make sure everything was locked up and stuff. So I was trying to instill in him early on to be that protector. So when he's a father and things like that, I believe those are just some things that our role, protector of that family and everything. So you look at, I hate to use the animal kingdom as an example, but you kind of, I seen, how, oh, you can edit that out. But as lazy as them dudes was, they were still the fighters. You know what I'm saying? Now you go over to their house, the women did everything, worked the fields, did all the cleaning, the cooking. Dudes just sitting around smoking cigarettes and, playing with their little beads and stuff, their prayer beads. We have another name for them. I'm not gonna say it on the show. It's going on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I better not say it.
And the podcast. Yeah, you don't give me strikes.
Okay, so you get that little restricted warning on yours.
Right.
But with their prayer beads. And but yet again, the women weren't the fighters. Things like that. That man still had that protector role, defend, and even if soldiers did something dumb, like it happened earlier on in those deployments, before we had a lot of became culturally aware, in different traditions and just being aware how, so you don't cause offense over there. Mm-hmm. If you did, then it was the eldest son's responsibility to do something. So if you did something to that family, it wasn't dad, especially the, older dad. For example, you do a raid, do a search, the proper thing to do, you dealing with the eldest male, the father, but you don't cuff him, don't search his head, remove his head covering in front of the family. Proper thing to do is you treat him still with some respect, bring him outside, and don't do that in front of his family. Because one, if he's innocent, right, and you hit the wrong house and stuff, and while you securing everybody, then when you leave, they're gonna go find, even if they were neutral, then they're gonna go find that local insurgents. They all know who the insurgents are, and then they're gonna go ahead and get that extra $100 that week. They, a lot of them was, the unemployment rate was through the roof up there, and inflation anyway during that time. But they're gonna get that IED. The eldest son gonna go get the IED, put it out on MSR Tampa, and blow up a coalition convoy to, because you dishonored his father, that family. Right. And I learned that way before the war started with a guy I went to boot camp with in the Marine Corps. And he was telling me about a time this guy he knows went to jail and was doing life because he killed the sister and dishonored the family. And this was over dating a black dude. And he was telling about this in boot camp. And he was from Dearborn, right, from Beirut. His father is, not his father, one of his uncles was like vice president over there during the time, 94. And, he felt it was his obligation to join the Marine Corps because this country allowed him to be a citizen. So he would fight in their military for 4 years. And I remember this is right after Desert Storm when I went in. So he was catching it in boot camp. I mean, he was catching it. But those guys had just got back from Saudi and stuff. And it wasn't as politically correct as it is now. But he made it. And I remember one thing she was telling me is they had warned the daughter that she's not to be seen with him. And she kept dating him. One day she pulled up. He walked out to the car and blew her brains out, pulled her off the car and shot her, and then waited for the police. And to the family, that was perfectly acceptable. That was what he was supposed to do. And I've seen it in Kuwait, things like that. I've seen it in Iraq. It's even worse in Kuwait because a lot of their workforce, a large percentage of their workforce is not Kuwaiti citizens. Mm-hmm. They are, what do you want to call them? They're not legal. They're documented immigrants, right? But they don't have citizenship status. So they'll be there on like a temporary visa or whatever over there, work permits and all. And some of them, the Kuwaitis do the free education, healthcare, all stuff, a lot of benefits being a Kuwaiti citizen. And some people are there almost like an indentured servitude because they dishonored the family. So you have to buy your honor back. So, right. So you can be over there from like Saudi Arabia trying to make enough money to go back and basically give 30 grand to your family, buy your honor back. Yeah. So I saw that over there. Iraq, different things too. So the honor thing is really big over there. and just again being culturally aware.
Ironically, that came up. I was talking to a young lady recently, and she had a physical altercation with, at the time, her boyfriend. And so I asked her, I said, and this young lady's in her 20s. I said, has your dad met your boyfriends? And she was like, oh yeah, her stepdad has met a lot of her boyfriends. It's like, oh, okay. And I said, well, here's the question that I have. Why did this guy feel that it was okay for him to put his hands on you, and he did not worry that your stepdad was going to come take care of him? And, she was just like, well, and I told her, I said, the guy that's dating my daughter, he got told what's going to happen to him if he does anything to my daughter the first time he came up in my house. So, and then I ended up sharing the story of how it's done in other countries that, and I even went back to the book of Genesis where, where Jacob's sons took care of the men of that town when they defiled the sister. And Jacob actually looked wrong, like, hey, we want peace with these guys. Brother's like, no, you done defiled our sister. We getting all of y'all. And so, I think that goes back to, there is that good element of protecting the woman that is definitely beneficial. And I think I'm not gonna go completely down that road, but because I'm talking about gender roles in this case, this is the good part, that women do benefit, and they do like that benefit, that they do know, because I don't care how much of a strong feminist or strong independent a woman may be, when she has to go out here and put in that work against a dude that's attacking her, she wants another guy to come give her some help. And it's good. I think that's where, again, we complement each other. And so, again, going back, it's innately in us, even as young kids. God put us, because we're going to believe God did it versus evolution. God put that in us for a reason, reason.
It's funny you mention that, because I just wrote about that 2 weeks ago, and I didn't get a comment from any of the females in my cohort. So it's only me and one other guy left. The rest are females. So 13 of us from my original cohort in this grad program. So the discussion about ethics came up, and he was talking about things in the military, because he's a retiree as well. And I don't remember exactly what it was about. It was about equality and stuff. So then I brought up the draft system, right? He was trying to say, hey, the military is basically been a leading example. Things will happen in the military first, like with integration, with Black folks. And, there was a time where units end up integrating, but then when you went off base, it was still segregated, right? So his point was, same thing with women. It kind of bled over into the workforce for a lot of areas too, and stuff, and women's rights and things. And now you got women being allowed in combat. So I brought up, well, that's interesting. I just seen an article, and there was like bipartisan support for the Defense Authorization Act here for 2022 to have women registered for the Selective Service.
Ooh.
And I brought that up. No comment. And I think it goes back to what benefits them, though, because if we're going to talk equality, I don't want to get too far off topic, but you don't see where I'm going. If we're going to discuss again, like in my class, equality, how women are being mistreated, pay gap between white males, white females, and then Black females as well, between white males, nationally still, and how things need to be equal and all this stuff. But then, okay, hey, why did my son have to register for the Selective Service? Which basically, if he accepted, he didn't even know he did. I showed him, I was like, yes, you did. Here's your draft number. And he was like, I never signed for that. And I said, because you went and got a license in Texas, you automatically got registered for it. Showed him, pulled it up on the website and everything. And he didn't even know, right? Probably something a little small. But that didn't happen to my daughter. Both of them got their license there, though. So, same thing there. We want the equality. By the way, I'm not a fan. I don't want none of my daughters having, I don't believe that's their role to have to do that. But when you're pushing it in the classroom, in my opinion, and you're not incorporating religious beliefs, then how can you disagree with that? In my opinion, and say, well, no, the men need to go do that and go fight and die if we need a draft. That's not a woman's place. Oh, everywhere except that, right? But she should be allowed to be an infantryman if she chooses. And the argument is, well, she chooses to. Because that was one of the comments in another part when he mentioned about being allowed in combat and stuff, which that's a whole nother conversation. Because before they were integrated supposedly in the infantry, I can tell you now, I've been right there in the middle of a battle, right next to me. Before that ever changed, that was like smoking, just blowing smoke to y'all from the media. Long before that changed, they were already on the battlefield. It's just a word game. But yeah, they were already in combat. I had one right next to me. It's just the way they won't assign them to the unit, they'll attach them to the unit. Just a little, like I said, playing a word game. But if they need them, we needed females to search other females for one. We needed, some of your, what are they called? Counterintelligence people, your tactical THT teams. They were basically like our interrogators. Some of those were women. And so, yeah, we kick in the door, secure the objective, and then they come in and they're dealing one-on-one, with, whoever we grab up. So it's not like they weren't there. They were like way behind the enemy line. No, they were right there on the objective. They just weren't the ones to kick in the door. You know what I mean? They just can't, but they were on the mission. This is like, it's stuff like that.
Wow. That is a perfect segue, because let's now move into your years now at 18. And this is where I'm going to throw some of my stuff in there as well, because certainly, and I think the time period is very important. Here it is. Before I go there, I want to go back to something real quick before I go there, because I don't want to segue into that, because I'll put a pin in this, wrote this down. From academically, you actually started in a private school, then you went to a public school. So you started a Christian school, then a Catholic school in Detroit, and then you went to a public school in Detroit. I don't want to jump to the military yet, because before that, you mentioned going to Arizona. How in the world did you end up out here in the AZ, yo?
That goes back to when I was saying dysfunction or chaos. This is my opinion. All right, so let me throw that out there, and I'm sure you can relate. Maybe you might not have the same opinion, but you understand as a parent. And I'm not faulting our parents for this at all. I believe they did the best job they could with what they had and what they knew to do. I commend our uncle and auntie, one, for taking me in. That wasn't their responsibility. And, I suppose, but alluding to, in my opinion, I wouldn't have sent my kid to Arizona. So, and I'm not a fan of that. I have taken a child in and a family member, but they were in a different situation, to the point where they were in Detroit in a car when I found out no heat with a child, but I'm sorry, they were in the car because they didn't have any heat in the house. So when they go to bed, when the sun went down, they go out to the car. And when I found that, I was like, nope, sitting down. And which was one of my in-laws, that was staying with us for a while. And so when I believe, of course, if there's some abuse and things like that, that's fine. But I've had some frustrating parenting moments as well. And there were opportunities, and I'm glad that I did go. I believe it fell into God's plan overall. There are things that I do in my own household now that I learned in Arizona. However, I will say that if my kids were getting ready to say, consider something like this if with my grandkids one day when I have them. I'm going to advise against it. I'm going to tell them, no, hey, you know what? I didn't send you to anyone. We got frustrated, whatever else or whatever else went on, we dealt with it. And didn't matter which one it was our responsibility. Didn't matter who house you asked to go stay with or whatever else. It was our situation to deal with. And I'm just a firm believer in that. So again, I'm not faulting anyone for that decision, even if it was one I asked for. But at 15, I had no idea what I was asking for. And but they did I commend Uncle Donald and Auntie Sue. That's a relationship I have with them. One of the last times I seen them, I thanked them again. And I told them, make the same comment I just made about I do things I learned from them. I do in my own household to this day, and I to them. But it was a responsibility, in my opinion, they shouldn't have had to take. I'll just leave it at that.
Now, it's real crazy because I asked this question, and I'm glad to ask this question, but I'm embarrassed to ask this question, to be honest with you, because you said at 15. I asked this question, and I'm going to probably ask a couple of more just on your time in Arizona, because I honestly don't know. It's literally like I am talking to you like I would be talking to any other man that I don't know the full story behind. I'm embarrassed to ask the question. And if I haven't, I'm apologizing to you right now, because I do think about it every now and then. And I apologize to you, and I can't apologize enough for me being your older brother, not being there, because I look at that time period. And so, first of all, you saying you 15, immediately I'm like, man, he was 15. So that means I was 21.
Well,
and then
14, I turned 15 already.
All right. So I had just became a father.
I'm sorry. Wait. Man, 10th grade. Oh, it was my 10th grade year. So
okay.
Yeah, 15
yep.
going. Yeah.
Yep. Right. So I had just became a dad, and I look back, I don't even remember ever calling you when you were out here, because I was so off in my own little problems in my own little world. So I apologize for not even being there for you the way that I should have been, because at that time I could still consider you my punk little brother, of course. But
man, it's all good. No apology, because it wasn't your responsibility, though. You know what I mean? I wasn't your kid, even though you had to step into that role at times. But that wasn't your responsibility either, man. And one you shouldn't have had to assume as much as you did as a parental figure. So you had your own stuff going on, understandably, no need to apologize. Never once even crossed my mind blaming you for any of that.
Thanks. But I mean, I guess it's funny in a sad way that here was, when I think about it from an outsider's perspective, you weren't that bad of a kid that you should have to go live somewhere else. Is that how you felt looking back at that? Because I've heard, like you said, about other kids having to go live somewhere, usually they running from the law, or we go back to the old days, the girl that got pregnant, so we got to send her up north. But yeah. You didn't get any trouble. And I'm talking any trouble as in, it was almost, let me frame it this way. Do you think that you were considered a bad kid because you didn't live up to the expectations of our household? Or do you think that, I guess, why do you think that decision was made? Now, this is new to me. I didn't know you asked for it. Why did you ask for it as well? Because you wasn't in any trouble. You didn't have a record. You wasn't getting arrested. Okay, so you had some guns and knives. We just talked about people stealing bikes and stuff. You needed to have guns and knives, or at least knives, let's say at that time. Guns would have been a different story. But knives, you needed to have that. So what do you think?
Yeah, I did ask, but it was more like, because Alton and Jason went out there to visit and things like that. So I kind of heard about it and did it. I don't know, it kind of just came up. I don't remember exact day, and then it's kind of rolled from there. And again, because I was internalizing a lot of things, getting angry, um, conflict that was going on in the house at the time. So I guess I can sum it up by this story here. So remember rolling back from California. You're in the Civic, Chris, you got the red Cadillac rental car, right? So I remember by the time we're rolling back, I'm already like ready to go back to Arizona at that point, because it's like, I remember all I was talking about was the Bible, the word, and all the scripture I learned. So, mama loved that. So we were all talking about that. And I could recognize the tone, the demeanor changing by a member of the household. And I remember sitting there like, man, I'm getting mad because I'm talking about the word. So we immediately started clashing. And it just like picked right back up where it left off. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting like, yeah, all I'm talking about is the Bible. So I remember we were riding home. I was in the back of the caddy. And I woke up to your parents arguing. And at this time, a certain member, a relative of ours, was in a boys' home. So I remember your father saying that I need to be put in the boys' home just like him and all this stuff when we got back. Now, we ain't even made it back to Michigan yet. We like in Nevada or something somewhere, right?
So, that means we had only been on the road not even about one full day.
Yeah, so I'm listening to this stuff and they think I'm sleeping. And I'm listening to this argument about me and put me in the boys' home. And of course, your mother immediately blasts back and nobody doing nothing and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, man, I'm not even home yet. And I'm trying to think, like, what did I do? I said, I was talking about the word. I did remember I wanted a BB gun, and I was saving up working for it with Uncle Lawrence while I was there. So I really couldn't pinpoint it. So that was, I won't, but again, I'm not going to blame no one else for my decisions, but that put some doubt, it definitely, because again, now I'm already frustrated. So now that anger, that I'll say that kind of resolved over the year and just thinking, things are going to be different. It just picked right up from where they left off. And now I'm a little older, about to get my license when I get back. Now I'm in Murray Wright, and it didn't help the situation. I just best way I can put it. So.
I think what's interesting is that here it is. We both had an opportunity to leave home, and it goes to show. I'm going to say again. Dads, you've heard me say this in other shows, the power we have over our households, because long before you had that decision to make, I don't know if you remember, but on one of our trips out to California, grandmama and auntie wanted me to stay and do an amusement park tour with them. Great America, Knott's Berry Farms. I guess grandma was taking Lisa and they're going to go all these amusement parks. And as much as obviously that love for the West came from those trips to California, I was like, and they were like, don't you want to stay? And it's not, uncommon for kids to stay the summers at their grandparents. And they were talking about flying me back. And it was like, no, I'd rather be at home with the family. But yet in a few short years later, you was like, I want out. Let me get up out of here, because our family dynamic had changed so much. It had changed so much. I always remember that trip. If I had to take a recording of when you and I became close, if I was telling my own story, I would say that was that pinpoint where when you got back from Arizona, that was where you stopped becoming my little brother, the punk little brother that was messing up my Hot Wheels and baseball cards, to now it was like, I think we became friends then. And so I always remember that trip and you coming back. So now we get back to, you're back in Detroit. And how did life change for you? And quick, let me say this real quick too, because I don't want to leave this. You mentioned Uncle Don and Auntie Sue. Yes, they have impacted my household. Thank y'all for what you've done. And so again, I'll say as dads and the mom as well, you don't know the impact you are having, not just on your own household, but on other people's households. I asked my kids a long time ago, as y'all move out, let's still get together on Sundays. And that's still a tradition we try to do because that's what they did. And so, props to y'all for doing that. Props, y'all impacted other households you didn't even think. But now you come back to Detroit.
Let me interrupt real quick. So one thing, if you were asking any of my kids and look at them, especially Jaden, and say she's getting ready to leave, I walk out the door and you say, if you get in trouble, remember to pray and call on the name of, so you say Jesus. And because that's what I used to have to say every morning when I left the house with Auntie Sue. So we'd be walking to Apollo. She's like, get in trouble, remember to pray, call on the name of. It's like, Jesus. And I'm like in 5th grade. I did that to my kids all the way up. Jaden's the last one. I still do that to. She's not 18 yet. So again, that's something I picked up from their house that I learned. And that's why I said, even that fit, I believe in God's plan. Because those are things that I've imparted to my kids that I learned from them.
It almost sounds like you were Joseph. It almost sounds like you were Joseph. Here it is. Your life didn't necessarily go the way you would have planned it. And then we're not going to say what somebody meant for evil, because that wasn't the case, like you said. But what could have been something perceived as meant for evil or derail that plan, what you learned during your time in Egypt ends up becoming the legacy of where God would end up really taking you later on in your future.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Man, that's something. I never thought of it that way. That's great. And I'm in Arizona today, partially because of you. Because I'm moving to California. So man, that's spectacular. So you come back to Detroit, and now you're going to a Detroit public school after those years of being raised in a private school, and being in Arizona. How did that shape you before you transitioned to the military? Because I know the military was such a unique transition. What guy were you at 17?
It wasn't that bad of a shock compared to going from Fairlane to, say, presentation 6th to 7th as it was. Because remember, I had my time in Bovian 8th and 9th. So then I just went to Arizona for 10th. And then 11th, 12th, I was at Murray. So I was kind of already used to that crowd, except, most of those people went, a few of my classmates actually from 8th grade ended up coming to Murray anyway, but the rest went to Mumford. I found the younger, maybe if I came there as a freshman, it would have been a little different, but kind of by the 11th grade, a lot of them folks had chilled out. It was now the 9th and 10th graders kind of causing more of the issues around there. 11th, 12th grade, a lot of those guys had chilled out, start, thinking like, what am I going to do now? I'm about to graduate. So it wasn't as bad as, I hate to say Detroit public school, but it wasn't a Bovian atmosphere. Again, I started driving at that time. So if I didn't feel like going to school, I didn't. Which I was just talking to my son about giving somebody too much time and certain resources at that age. But that's another story. We'll say that for another time. But what definitely helped at Murray, right, and the reason I went there anyway, because it was out of our school zone. So I was supposed to go Southwestern or Mumford. Would have been, I went because they had that NJROTC supposed to be like an academy. And the only real big difference was they had more instructors, and it was ROTC instead of it being some schools like once it was one class, but it would be how do I explain it? You only wore it once a week. Normally you had to wear it no, it wasn't every day. I can't remember. Man, that was a long time ago. But they were one of the few what was called naval junior academies, and it happened to be in Detroit. Another at that time was in California, so it helped set me up. Once because I took it in ninth grade at Bovian, 10th grade in Arizona, took it for 11th grade at Murray Wright, and I only needed 3 years to go in as an E2 with a little promotion in the military. And they basically, the ROTC instructor signs off on it, formed from the recruiter. So I did, of course, the minimum 3 years, made my instructors mad because I didn't want to do a 4th year, and which I'm still in touch with to this day, believe it or not, from those relationships that were cultivated. My instructor even came to Paris Island while I was down there.
Wow.
Yep, sure did. Colonel Church. He came during second phase. My drill instructors and all were standing at attention talking to him. But so that definitely, was again fit just into the plan with later on, shortly thereafter, going in the military.
So we go back to ninth grade, and again, I'm just learning this for the first time. Where did that seed get planted to join the military? Because I mean, we're talking about a time where not a whole lot of people seem to be going in. We were at a Cold War time. Well, actually, by the time you went, it was Cold War my time. By the time you went in, you had Desert Storm, but compared to where things are now, it was still a little bit of a different time period. So where did that desire in you come from to go into the military?
Good question. I think some of it, even with Granddaddy, we used to go over on the boulevard to the second story house with the red carpet, shaggy carpet, whatever it was. And I used to look at his tour book from World War II all the time. And interesting, he made that on Okinawa in 1945. Exactly 50 years later, in 95, I was on Okinawa. And so here's my tour book from 1995.
Nice.
Marine Corps. Yeah. So I think that had a lot to do with it, with Granddaddy impacting me. And I used to talk to Joe's stepdad a lot, Ray, and I had already had the plan from there. Go in the Marine Corps, go recon. It's like an 18-mile drive. We'll take you out of the beaches. He was a reconnaissance Marine in Vietnam, which I can get into that whole thing, exactly how he said they were going to do, come recruit you out of receiving. That's exactly what happened. I went out there. Exactly, and that was the plan. But me and Joe was supposed to do it, go in ROTC and go on buddy plan, going in the military together. And I think he did like one semester and quit ROTC, and that was the end of him joining the military too.
Yeah. Wow. So then you get ready to go in. And so you make this decision to join the Marines. So let's move on to this time period of your life from, if I remember correctly, 18 to 26.
18 to 22. 17 to 22, actually. I signed up at 17. Right after my 17.
Okay. And you actually, tell me this story. This is a little bit of an interesting story. You almost, now this is one I'm throwing out there to prompt you. So you almost didn't have a chance to go.
Yes. So, well, I can actually back it up a little bit around the same time period. Just being a kid, I didn't want to go in the Marines. I wanted to go in the Army. And then I didn't even want to talk to my ROTC instructors about it, who are all retirees, now in the school system and everything. And so I'm like trying to keep this thing a secret. And the Army recruiter actually signed me up to do the ASVAB test and stuff. And they never called me back. And Marine Corps recruiter kept blowing me up. And so that's why I went ahead and ended up going and, decided it was going to be the Marines. I knew I was going to do something in the military. Then I ended up going in the Marine Corps, which is, of course, met my wife at the same recruiting station. So, but during that time frame, I was in what's called delayed entry program. And again, I didn't have any idea the decisions I was making back then, just how much they would impact me later on. So, for example, for my retirement now, it shows my date as 93. right, for pay. I didn't go on active duty till June 20th of
Your audio
1994.
sounds like it's going in and out a little bit.
I would say my active duty date is June 20th, 1994.
Okay.
My pay date is June like 23rd, 93. Didn't know it at the time, but just signing up for the delayed entry program and getting picked up and go to little drill things once a month with Sergeant Garcia and all, I get paid, compensated for the rest of my life that extra year. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, during that time frame, so I'm thinking, I think we're getting ready to turn 18 and got into a fight in the lunchroom. The guy should have stayed out of it, but I basically picked between two friends, and because this one we were going to karate together, went to the same karate school, so I jumped on the other dude with him, and I thought I was just going to get suspended. I'm going to graduate next month anyway, ain't no big deal. And man, I went in there to go turn myself in. The cops was in there. I'm like, whoa! And she's like, have a seat. So, man, you could trace back problems in Detroit, probably from incidents like this. You remember that whole case got thrown out. She told my recruiter, because he went to talk to her. She's like, oh, if he's going to the Marines, I'll just tell him that. I'll tell the judge when I got there, everything was fine. And, drop the charges. They'll drop the charges. Because you can't arrest somebody for disorderly conduct if you didn't witness it. And you show up an hour later and everything's fine. So why didn't the judge ream them and say, hey, why are you arresting people and wasting my time when you just want to come in court and tell me that, you didn't see anything? But you went to that court hearing. Now, what you probably missed, though, is when I went outside to talk to the lawyer, right, he was telling me to plead guilty, right? And Sergeant Garcia was like, oh, you know what? If you plead guilty, you better say not guilty. I was like, but I am guilty. He's like, you better say not guilty. I was like, okay, so they're not guilty. And then, so finally, when I went before that judge and they would do 36 district court at Quest, and I went up there, cop took the stand. She was like the SRO for the school, and I didn't hardly say nothing. And she was like, yes, when we arrived, everything was broke up fine, and that was it. Judge refunded a little $50 bail. But here's the kicker, man. I don't know if you remember this. He goes, and he only said it to me, three of us. And he said, hey, turn around to the kids and give them some advice. So I turned around right after I just got found not guilty for fighting and all that stuff and disorderly conduct. I turned right around, told all them kids, I said, hey, don't do what I just did. I was fighting in school, almost blew my chances of joining the Marine Corps, blah, blah, blah. And then remember, everybody gave me a standing ovation, the kids, and the judge was back there clapping. And I remember walking off thinking, like, I just admitted to doing this crime, and the judge is back here clapping. And I was like, man, it's just a big waste of time. And I was only 17.
I vaguely remember that, but I never pieced it together that way. But I have told that story to other people. That was the first indication that I ever received of the school to prison pipeline that exists in the Black community. Because it's like, here it was, early 90s, and I remember being in high school at a white high school, and they had a huge melee with the teens, and none of those kids went to jail. And so you get into a food fight, and here it is, you getting arrested,
17.
going to a court case. Yes,
I was charged as an adult.
Fight. Yes,
as an adult,
and that could have changed everything in your future.
And the public defender told us to plead guilty. You've never been in trouble. You just get some probation. I said, I'll get ready to do it. Nobody told me nothing different except the recruiter. And do you know that thing popped up even 4 years later? Really? When I came back to Detroit, and I broke the brakes for a minute, waiting to do the police department thing, waiting on that. When I was trying to get my carry permit. And for some reason in their system, they needed the disposition of it. So I had to go back and get the paper for that thing 4 years later, and everything, it popped up. So even when I would do my security clearance, right? For the military, 50 years, I have to put that down. That is still because they want to
Wow.
know if you've ever been arrested. So I still have to put that thing down. That just goes to show, you know, it worked out for me, but it was still there where people could see it, even though I found not guilty. I still had to put it down again for, because it was an arrest that really shouldn't have happened. But how many people didn't have somebody give them advice that was, that contradicted the public defender,
Yes.
and they just took that charge.
Yes. Because I mean, I know I've been with a lot of white parents that the first thing they did, their kid was dead wrong. Drinking underage, et cetera, et cetera. And the first thing they did is go make sure they got a lawyer
Yep.
to make sure that not only are they found not guilty, but they also gets expunged from their record.
Right.
That's the main thing they worried about. It's almost like I paid a ticket, but don't put it on my insurance, because I know that's going to be the thing that's going to hit me the most going in the future. Let's take a quick break real fast. Here we go. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. I love the Marine Corps. Here we go. You are now going into the Marines, but I have to ask this first. Do you remember what happened right before you actually went to Parris Island? We went to a Tiger game. Do you recall what happened at that Tiger game? If I remember, I don't know if we went how many days or whatever before you got shipped out.
Granddaddy and Corey.
I remember Corey was there wearing his Colorado Rockies jersey. Did you get Granddaddy go? I don't recall.
Maybe not. But I remember Corey.
Uh-huh.
I don't remember anything else about particular.
If I remember correctly, I think you came back from the restroom and said something about, and I have to go check the date, because again, that's why I'm asking you, because your memory better than mine. But it seems as though, if I remember it right, you came back from the restroom and said something about on the TV, they had like OJ Simpson driving down.
Yeah.
Was that right? Was that the exact same time?
That was that month I was leaving.
Yeah, okay. It was right.
That's funny, because then I was still watching it the next year. I think it was a trial or something with it in Okinawa. Yep. So it still
Oh, because I was like, I always remember we went to the game before you left and you came back. It was one of those, once again, where everybody remembers where they were at when. Yeah. And I remember we were at the game right before you were getting shipped out. But you didn't really get shipped out. You got shipped down to Parris Island. So now we get to those years. Funny, I said 26. I was 26, I think, when you got out. So it was you spent 4 years in the Marines. What's the story from the 4 years that you spent in the Marine Corps?
So earlier I mentioned about Joe's stepdad telling me about recon.
Your audio breaking up just a little bit again.
I had mentioned previously about Joe's stepdad and how he was a recon Marine in Vietnam, and I wanted to do that. So when I joined up, I had been talking to him about it, and he was telling me, yeah, they're going to come and get you in receiving, and they're going to show you a video and stuff, and then drive you out like 18 miles and all this stuff to the beach. And that's where they're at, totally away from the rest of the division. And excuse me. So, well, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me back up. So there's a reason. It'll all connect. I'm going to go to that story, but I'm going to tell you another one before that. So while I was in boot camp, you remember, what's that, Fowlerville by Howell, Michigan?
Yep.
Yeah. So this guy named Theo was from Fowlerville. And while we were in boot camp, he was telling me that basically he was just as bad as Howell, according to him. He was saying basically had no black people there. But he thought it, all that, all that Klan stuff was stupid, but his parents were racist and all this stuff. So when you're leaving boot camp, you have instilled in you, every Marine's your brother, all you see is green, all this stuff, right? And I remember, man, his parents were there, and he hugged me right in front of him, right? And that stuck with me. So I kind of thought that's how it was going to be. So fast forward now, I go through Marine combat training in North Carolina, SOI, and go down the road to Lejeune, go to receiving. And while I'm there, just like Joe's stepdad said, bring recon recruiters show up, show us a video. I want to go recon. They screen my records. Like, yep, you'd be a good fit. Come on out. Come hang out for about 2 weeks, do some light PT, physical training, and then you'll take the NDOC to basically assess you. So I'm like, yeah, just like Joe's Ray said. So sure enough, man, we took this long trip out there in the van. They talking to you all nice, like, yeah, we're out here on the beach and all this stuff. We get up there, pull up, and it's all open squat bays, right? Like boot camp. Man, as soon as that thing stopped, they started screaming, get off there, and then like all the hazing and stuff starts, right? So that was cool. It comes with the I was like initiation, man. I just look at it like a frat or anything. So we get there, and this is where the climate starts changing. Remember, I haven't now. That's like my first experience in what's called the FMF Fleet Marine, and so that's getting ready to be my first unit. So I get there, and then I start seeing the Confederate flags.
Your audio broke up right real quick again. You said you started seeing what?
The Confederate flags.
Oh,
You're getting greeted. You got his Confederate flag hat on. You wear your X, I'll wear mine. I started hearing them dropping in bombs and stuff. And but that wasn't even the worst part. It was when, the guys got hammered and then they come back at night. And even the guys that had been there a while, they call them ropes. They had to wear a rope. And they see somebody that's already been through the basic reconnaissance course come up and say, hey, tie me into the line bolt. You tie it, and if you mess it up, inspect it, and not they make you do push-ups and stuff. They be drunks. They come in, tie me a noose, and then drag the dude down the squat bay and stuff, by his neck. And then you hear all the racial comments and stuff. So at that point, I'm like, hey, I'll play the game, but you ain't about to put your hands on me, right? So I had my knives and stuff. I bought a K-bar and all this stuff in there. Obviously, they're warming up with kicks and stuff. So nobody actually put a hand on me. But I watched them, and it was funny because there's like one Mexican guy there that was actually in recon. He found another Mexican that was trying out and was sticking his head in a wall locker, slamming it in there and stuff. And this one dude was Amish or something. And never seen black people before. Literally told me that too. And just scared of everything, man. And right after about 25 push-ups, he started crying. And so they start kicking him and stuff in the ribs and stuff, make him cry more. And so God, at that point, this went on for like 2 weeks. So when time for the NDOC came around, as you remember, I've been a good swimmer, right? From the swim team and all that stuff. So I remember when I was taking the assessment test, you do a modified Marine Corps PT test. So the difference is like when you would do your dead hang pull-ups, you have to look over like that. And so you do a PT test, then you go to the pool. You have to swim underwater so long with it was a brick underwater, tread water for like 30 minutes and a couple other things. It's too easy. And I guess they expect me to be able to swim. So smoked all of that. But when I was on the run, that's what it was. I was in front of, by the time the NDOC came around, I was like, I ain't staying here. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to outdo all these cats just to prove a point. And that's how I thought about it. And I was like, I'm not staying. So smoked everything. Matter of fact, down to the when I was on the run, they were yelling at one of the white boys, you better not let that beat you. Yeah. So to do a modified PT test, which was pull-ups, sit-ups, and 3-mile run. As soon as you got done, they trucked you to the pool, had to do our stuff, treading water, passing the brick around. Oh, and while you're doing that, they grabbing you under, pulling your legs, you're in the deep end, treading water in a circle and passing this brick around just for 30 minutes. And then they're sharking you at the same time, but I just play along. and then come back up and fine, keep going. I was like, man, it's easier than the swim team was back at Northwest. Because if you try to take a break, man, that dude used to throw the kickboards at you. And I used to swim all them laps all day long at Northwest, so it came in handy then. So smoked that, and then we had to go do the obstacle course twice. That was a smoker. And then right after that, throw a ruck on. It was a 5-mile run, and on the beach. So this is all in one day, right? So I came in second on that for my group, right? So then it was like, hey, go throw your what's called your Charlie's on, type of more dress uniform, and you go before the board. They just ask you questions. I was like, nope. And it's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm done. It was like, all you gotta do is go before the board. I said, I know. I just want to outdo everybody and prove a point. And I was like, I'm done. I withdrew.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. You just need to put a black glove on and be like.
Well, one of the dudes snitched though, and he reported him. They ended up doing this big old investigation. So it wouldn't have been good to stay anyway, because some heads was getting ready to roll over there as well. They started asking questions, and it was like, look, I just want to go. Let me get out of here. Well, so then I get to my unit thinking, okay, now I'm gonna get to the regular Marine Corps, regular infantry. And I get there, and let's just say life got better once I got the Capri down there. That way I ain't had to go hide at the PX on the weekends, because it was so bad. You'd have to, even if you try to hide your room, the duty NCO had a master key. He'd unlock it. Basically, he's the guy on duty, making sure they don't tear the barracks up and stuff, and answering phone calls, Red Cross and stuff. And basically, he's the representative for the commander when everyone's off. Well, he'd come and unlock the door, the master key, and let them all come get you. So they, once they found you, that's just regular hazing. It wasn't more racially oriented. That was different. And they go for hours. They be drinking, karaoke, butter cake, push. So I just go to PX, hang out for like 8 hours. And then when I got a car, I could go on base. So that was fine. And but then that's when I started noticing people really clicking up. So the kind of brothers pulled me in there that been there a while. But the problem with that was, like, my team leader was the biggest drug dealer in the battalion. So you got, the brothers that was there. It was weird, because I've watched this change in the military over the years, where they didn't really view what they was doing was wrong, because they could run, right? And they could PT good. They didn't quit. They was good in the field and stuff, but they sell weed and stuff back at, in Garrison and all. And that was that skill that, they just couldn't let that part go. And I looked them guys up years later here, man. And one of them, actually several of them, one of them got kicked out of the Marine Corps when I was there. And then he got felonies when he got out. The other one, my team leader, got a felony, did prison time, everything. It's just like, man, you had a fresh start when you came in. And then they kept that mess going. And they did pull me in when I first got there. They kind of knew how to climb. Because when you knew, again, you got this mindset, everybody, we're all one happy Marine Corps family kind of thing. And people resort back to the way they were most of the time. And so they click up. And I remember we were at a company party, man. A dude come out, got a Klan shirt on, talking about the original boys in the hood. Yeah. So I say it was stuff like that. Yeah. And finally, like when one of the brothers complained, like they made him turn it inside out. Stuff like that. So, but that was kind of like my first year. And there, no big deal from there. It's just really want to share the recon one, because that kind of bothered me, because that was something I was looking forward to, and being a recon Marine and all that. And I got out there, the racism that changed my whole process on. But me, like, all right, I ain't let the beat up. So trying to be competitive. Now I got to win. So that was that.
I'm reminded, move with strategy, not emotion. I mean, it sounds like that's exactly what you did.
Yep, that's I don't want to be. Why? Just go to the board. Nope. You ain't had it.
Wow.
I'll beat
Wow.
everybody.
So you spend your time, and I don't know, we might have to have you dial back in. It seems like as you really start talking, your audio just kind of fades in and out, or like there's a little bitty click, or now I'm wondering if it's just coming through my headphones. But let's try it again. If it keeps going, I might just have to have you dial in and back out. Maybe that'll clear it back up, because it seems like it wasn't that way at first. It seems like it's been happening late. I don't know if it's buffering or what, but let's see how it goes.
My internet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, right there, that was just perfect.
Okay.
But now let's move. How would you summarize, would you say, your time period in the Marines, and then how in the world did you transition, and why would you go into the Army after that? If here it was, you were in the Marines, United States at the time was, we'll just use the term, at peace, like many people use. What would make you go into the Army after that?
So I did my 4 years. Went to Okinawa, Korea while I was there. Did the whole infantry thing, and basically Marine Corps. And it's funny, they're just starting to kind of change this. I saw the articles last week. They're wondering why they suffer with retention, because nearly 80%, it's like 78% of the people first term get out. And Marine Corps is trying to fix that now. All this time later, as soon as I read it, I was like, that's because it sucks. Don't get me wrong. If I had to do all over again, I would do all those same experiences again. Right? I'd do the same thing I did. Right? I'd do in the Marine Corps, everything. If I see another Marine on the side of the road, I'll still stop and help, all that stuff. I've done it. Right? Give them rides, see a Marine walking, whatever. But there was no, it's a much smaller branch, so it's very competitive. And it's difficult to make rank to an extent. And the options, you only got Camp Lejeune, especially as an infantryman, you have 3 divisions in Marine, 4 divisions. One's reserve, and then 3 active divisions. Now, to put that in perspective, when you come visit to Fort Campbell, that's 1 division right there, just Fort Campbell. Fort Bragg is another division, and then we'll say when you came visit me in Georgia, 3rd ID, that wasn't even the full division there. The rest of the division, that was 1 brigade. The rest of the division was at Fort Stewart. Well, that's the entire Marine Corps just from those bases right there. You see what I'm saying? So they didn't want to give me no options, basically. So I went ahead and decided to get out. Well, a little more to it than that. I'm not gonna get too far off track. But since I mentioned it before, at least to your mother, a major reason I came back home is for some things she expressed. And again, so going back to what we were just talking about, your mother hurt and whatever else. So feeling like I need to come home, and when you're away, things seem a lot worse. I think that at least they do to me than they probably really were. So, I remember, talking to Tamika about it, praying about it, everything, and decided, hey, we're going to go back home. And that's why I started the process for the Detroit Police Department. Remember, you had to live in the city back then. So we were renting a place out, all that stuff. Landlord was sweating me to buy it or do another lease for a year. And I'm like, hey, I'm just staying here long enough to get past my interviews, because I didn't want to live in Detroit. And but in November, Tamika had started looking at the Army, and she talked to the recruiter, and I wasn't even going to entertain it, man. And I was like, I'm going to the Detroit Police Department. I basically was like, hey, they got till December. I want to do something else. And I just waiting on everything was done. They did the home interview with her. I'd done everything. I'm just still waiting for that oral board. So recruiter comes by, and I just start throwing out a list of demands, kind of being sarcastic. As soon as he walked through the door, I'm like, hey, you make mission yet? Which was, they got a quota. And he starts laughing. And he's like, why you ask that? I said, because he says, yeah. And I said, all right, come back next month then. He's like, no, I want to work with you. What do you want? So that's when I was like, I want to go to Fort Campbell. I want a bonus, all this stuff. And actually ended up getting it. And look at it, I'm retired here. So it's funny how that works out. But he made it happen. And 2 days before I shipped out, on January 2nd, Detroit police called my oral board. I was like, I'm leaving for the Army in 2 days, and that was that. Yeah.
So what's tripping me out, man, is how young you were. Because again, it's if you would have asked me off the top of my head, I would have sworn you were in your mid to upper 20s, but you were what, 22?
I was 22.
Man, you were making some major big baller shot caller decisions at that age. I mean, and I know, we always say the military makes you grow up, but on the flip side, as you just expressed, it's a lot of dudes that go in, they still don't grow up when they go in there.
Oh.
But you were a grown man at the end of those 4 years. Here it is, you had a wife, you now had a child. I mean, you were in full husband daddy mode. Yeah, that's wow. That's I didn't even realize that until now, how young you were at that age.
Yeah, I made that move. She was 7 months when I moved her down here, and then Damon Jr. was born 2 months later.
Yeah. So you make the decision to go into the Army. So needless to say, this is where the stories really get interesting. So I'm going to let you just index your Army career to where we come up to before retirement. Whatever stories, because I know there are many that you can tell as you look back at your Army career from that day that you went in to the day that you retired.
All right. Well, before I first have to say, I definitely didn't get it all right. So the Lord has been very, very merciful. I didn't do it on my own. I believe the Lord directed my steps. And in addition to that, been very gracious. Because I didn't get it right all the time, probably most of the time. Left to myself. And again, like I said, I made mistakes. I made some bad decisions that again, they could have turned out bad, just immaturity or whatever over time. And, you learn from.
Breaking up again a little bit.
You have a lot of responsibility in the military. And, you got 18-year-olds driving $1 million tanks there. I mean, it's kind of like you see when a CEO gets fired, because something happened way below his level. Just the potential, which I'll get into shortly, for things to happen. It could have got bad, but the Lord seen me through it. So I definitely first, like I said, I just want to explain that, all success and being eventually going into my retirement at the we say top of the food chain, but as retiring as a sergeant major, I give God all the glory for that, because I never thought I would make it that high. Even in my high school yearbook, I didn't even put that. I put first sergeant, one below that. I didn't think I'd ever make it that high. And that was something interestingly, in my high school yearbook, I put that I'd be married, I get to have a bachelor's, I'd have a Kawasaki.
You broke up because we definitely got to get this. You said you put in your high school yearbook, you'd be married and what?
I was trying to see if I had it handy. It's upstairs, but I said I'd be married, I'd have a bachelor's degree, I'd be a recon Marine sniper, I think I put, and I have a ninja. So, and I'd retire first sergeant or something. So, but instead, I joined the Army after that, and I went right into a reconnaissance unit. And from that reconnaissance unit, a subsection of that is the sniper section. And they sent me to the sniper section from there, and I got to go to Special Forces Sniper School, long range reconnaissance school. Basically, the first year they sent me to so many schools, I was tired of school. I just stayed in different schools and stuff, or out in the field. My first year.
We're really getting choppy there. All right, let's try. Can you connect back in maybe with
yes.
and maybe it'll pick back up? All right, let's try that. I'm gonna pause for a second. I'm actually going to keep going while he dials back in. We're going to keep this going, and I think this is just fantastic. Well, okay, here he goes, and he's going to come back in and join us as his audio is connecting. Um, I think a lot of brothers definitely did not certainly do duty in both branches of the military, so I think his story of doing that definitely is a surprise to many people. But I started recording again just to kind of fill in this gap. You being a brother serving in both branches. But go ahead, pick it back up from where you were at.
So I get
That's
to
good.
that unit. Oh, let me back up again. There is no transition period, by the way. So when I left MEPS, swear in again, I was in just clothes like this and a suitcase, and flew me to Nashville Airport. And they just said, hey, we don't know how far Nashville Airport is from Fort Campbell, so make sure you take enough money to get there. So I'm like, okay. So I basically saw some people in the uniform and hopped on the bus with them.
Wow.
Get to Fort Campbell. So that's how my career started. I mean, it was no class on joining the Army or anything. So then they issued me my uniforms. What I was in was called replacement, kind of like receiving in Marine Corps. And from there, straight to, I said, a reconnaissance unit, put me in sniper section. And then it was like 9.5 mile run tomorrow. Make sure you're hydrated. Like, I never ran that far in the Marine Corps. So I stayed in there. I was here at Fort Campbell about 2 years. Then I had orders to Korea. So I'm back in Korea again. And what led up to that, though, is I believe I caused a little uproar at my unit. And to this day, I believe my sergeant major called and put me on orders. They were trying to do a health and welfare inspection at the time. And literally what they put out is we coming through, looking through wife drawers, all this stuff. I'm like, oh no, the commander and stuff. And I raised up a big stink about it, went and talked to JAG about it. Man, they found that out. And I remember my sergeant major went off on me and, saying that they could do that because they pay me housing allowance and that's really their house. I'm like, no, that house belonged to Wells Fargo. I got a mortgage at the time. And I told him I was going to call the police. He was like, be the last thing you do. And oh, man. And next thing I know, I got orders to Korea.
Wow.
I didn't realize that probably a decade later, now that I'm in like that position. And I used to call him, like, get this guy out of my unit. They put him on assignment. I was like, bet you that's what he did to me.
Oh, you broke up. You said you didn't realize until 10 years later. And then you said now that something.
Oh, that I was in that type of position to put people on assignment, just called.
Still bringing up bad now.
I could call Department of the Army later as a first sergeant and a sergeant major and put people on assignment, and they just put them on assignment. Okay, first sergeant or sergeant major, no problem. And I know that's what they probably did to me back then.
Wow.
Yeah. That's another story. We'll say that for another time. So then from there, I went to Korea. I was on the DMZ. There's one cool thing about that. I can see on some days, I can see the North Korean flag from my bedroom, in my barracks room. And so, yeah, I lived on DMZ for a year. And, as we, talked, or as we conversed earlier, off line about them changing the rules if they want to, and different laws and stuff. Well, there's a policy if you did a year that you're supposed to be stabilized for 6 months when you got back. So basically back then, you gotta remember when I left for Korea, or the day I was supposed to leave was September 11th, 2001. And yeah, I was supposed to leave at 7 p.m. that night from Nashville Airport. And so obviously I didn't leave that day, left a couple weeks later. And then when I got to Korea, did my year, came back to like this new America that I wasn't kind of used to, with the airport security and stuff. Wow. And but the rules had changed. Everything from getting on post to I was supposed to be stabilized for 6 months, not going no deployments, nothing. And yeah, they did away with a lot of that. As soon as I got there, they were like, "Hey, you got your gear?" When I got my units, like, "Yeah, Roger." Hey, all right, we leaving in 8 days. And now I've been going a year now. So they're like, we're leaving in 8 days, going to Louisiana for training, which didn't count. That's training. But Iraq was ramping up then. And I'm like, well, hey, I got 6 months stability. And they laughed. They're like, hey, that's getting waived. And we're going to Iraq. This is after we get back from Louisiana and stuff. And I'm like, well, not me. I'm not waiving my stability. I haven't seen my family in a year. And that's when they told me, hey, you don't have no, you won't even know it went up. It's going to be a blanket one, and they're going to approve it. And this time, 6 months from now, you're going to be sitting in Iraq. And I was laughing like, yeah, right. Sure enough, in between that, I had to go load up all the equipment at the port in Jacksport. And then I came home 2 weeks later. I was going to Kuwait and way in the desert. And that was like month 5. I had been home, so it wasn't even 6 months. And I was waiting to launch over into Iraq from there. And so that was for OIF-1. And did OIF-1. And
what does that stand for?
Operation
for all of us.
Freedom 1.
Okay. For all of us dirty, nasty civilians, as you used to say back in the day.
Yeah. So that was the initial invasion, came back. Basically, my unit realigned and restructured, and now I'm back in a reconnaissance company, as they called it. Very similar to the kind of like what the Marine Corps was doing. With the that was reconnaissance. Well, this is reconnaissance battalion, just like the one in the Marine Corps in some way, except they didn't do like scuba stuff. But and then I ended up taking over sniper section completely there, and I was one of four. One of four, because they only had sniper section leaders in the whole division at the time. So that was definitely a highlight for me, because I always wanted to do that job. So on top of just normally being on a sniper team, now I have multiple sniper teams. I'm controlling, advising the brigade commander on how to deploy and everything. Really enjoyed that till I got promoted and made Sergeant First Class E7. And then I had to go back and take over a reconnaissance platoon because couldn't be a sniper now, do the fun stuff. So now I'm in Iraq, OIF-4. As soon as I hit the ground, I'm in Sadr City, which was the bad part, as usual. And that's where he had the Mahdi militia, all those loyalists to Al Sadr and stuff. And man, did that deployment. Let's see. I could talk about that all day. It was bad times. Then came back. Before we even got back, we already knew that we were heading back to Iraq again. So by the time we get back, get reintegrated, and go on leave, we start training to go back to Iraq. And this time for 15 months. So the next year, I'm sitting in Iraq again, 15 months, same platoon as a platoon sergeant. So over there for 15 months. And I obviously skipped a lot, but I kind of want to spend a little time here because, you go through some things and you don't always know why. For example, in OIF-1, I remember I used to think, like, I don't know what I did to deserve to be here, but, kind of grumbling. And but we used to run some Bible studies over there. And I remember the chaplain coming over to me one day and saying, I've had about a 70% reduction in my counseling to people over here, because you guys are doing these Bible studies. So I kind of just chalked it up. I was like, oh, okay. Well, then, man, a couple of years later, one of my guys, he goes, hey, I learned more in those Bible studies in 6 months than I did in church. Spent 17 years in church. So then I quit complaining, right? And of course, then there were different instances where I know the Lord intervened and things. But on this third deployment, Yeah, I'll skip the second one. Like I said, I spent time on the third one. OIF 6-7, 15 months. It was to the point where things would happen. And I remember like my platoon leader would come over the radio. He'd be like, Sergeant Lindsay, how many is that? And I was like, 7, sir. There's times where something would happen and we avoid something. Right. And I don't care what them folks believe, but if Sergeant Lindsay had a dream that something happened or anything, they did not want to go down that road because I dreamed it was an IED there. And they're like, why are we going a different way? Like, Sergeant Lindsay had a dream it was an IED there. They're like, oh, no, we ain't going that way. So,
wow.
Yeah. So
you definitely sounded like Joseph now.
So one particular time, I remember they had these things called the KBR convoys would resupply the bases there, called FOBs. The large base, like where I was at, or the camps and stuff, the major hubs, we're talking like 70 tractor trailers, right? Lined up going down the highway, and they got to go through all these barriers to get in, and they got military escorts through. So you might have 100 and something vehicles. So we see this thing coming. We've been out late and stuff, and we're just ready to get back after our patrol and stuff. And, so we see this convoy, beat them, and then we get a call on the radio. Hey, we need you guys to go back and go take care of something, pick something up from somewhere. So my platoon leader's mad, throwing the hand mic at the windshield of the up armored Humvee and stuff. And I remember the guys were getting mad, and my crew asked me about it. It's like, we got to go back and do that. We're gonna get, we're gonna miss. You're gonna end up being behind called a clip. That what it stands for, Combat Logistic Patrol. And I see like almost like 100 vehicles that we be stuck behind, and it delay us getting in. And I remember telling them, I was like, hey guys, you never know why stuff like that happens. No big deal, it happens for a reason. Sure enough, as we're heading back in there, right in front of us, only delayed us like 15 minutes, but just enough for them to get in front of us. So we're waiting, and they get blown up, right? And it's actually a black soldier, man. He was in that vehicle. They blew up the fueler, and he was knocked unconscious in there, and this thing's burning and pulling him out.
Oh, wow.
Well, I watched the footage of it at the time later on during investigations and stuff, and you could see the insurgents put the stuff out there and timed it and everything. Well, that would have been us ahead of them when they would have blown it coming in. So I remember my platoon leader coming over the radio. It's like, how many is that, song? That's it. I was like 7 or 9, whatever. And it's just stuff like that's happened through deployment. Man, another time we're sitting in an ambush, rolled the MRAP over, and nothing happened, man. The guys were completely fine. I didn't tear up the vehicle, nothing. My guy right behind me, man. And this thing fell into a ravine, like the bridge gave out and stuff. And what's that, ambush? Or we were doing an Overwatch that time, I think it was. But anyway, so the MRAP, top heavy, falls over, man, into this like ravine or something. And we had to call recovery, get pulled out, took like 8 hours. Only thing on it was like this sheet metal thing for the fuel tanks on the door or whatever got bit. And they pulled this thing back. We were able to drive it in. Next day, the guys are inspecting it. It's fine. And they go to my team leader goes to jump off the stair and twist his ankle. And I'm like, y'all just rolled this thing last night. The gunner's in the hatch. They pulled him down, everything over, and this thing falls completely over, like 8 feet. Not a scratch on nobody. I was like, you twist your ankle, you're on the fob. So then we end up going back out that day and near that area. And the reason was that's what we're going to do Overwatch, because it was a major IED site where insurgents would use. And you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. It's like a tier 2 IED site. And they wanted us to inspect the culverts, because what the insurgents would do is we start getting beefier vehicles like the MRAP. They start putting homemade explosives under the major highway and the culverts and blow the whole road up from under you. And So I'm talking like, you know, hundreds of pounds of explosives. So they want you to get out and inspect them and make sure they're in there. And I was like, man, I'm not making my guys do that. But of course, I couldn't disobey an order. So I did it. I was like, you know, if anybody's going to go, I'm going to do it. So I get out, I'm looking around, and then some of the locals were around. So I started talking to them. Of course, they all swear they never seen no bad guys, no nothing, right? Well, I look down the road and see some vehicles coming way down the highway. So I look on, it's called our, oh man, I forgot the name of it now. But it's basically I can ID the unit and stuff, and it has the map on it, digital, everything. And I looked and saw the engineer unit, which was our route clearance. They come through, scan for mines and all that stuff. And that's their job anyway. So I was like, oh, shoot, route clearance coming. I'm going to have to leave. So now, again, I just checked this culvert and everything. I'm out there, out the vehicle. So I get back in. I'm at, I don't want to say where I was at.
Right. Classified,
But,
classified.
yeah. But I moved from that checkpoint, go around the curve to the next checkpoint, and my unit calls me on the radio. So, you know, hey, Shadow 17, Shadow CP, hey, Shadow 17, hey, we need you to go back to that checkpoint and help route clearance. They just hit an IED. I said, how did it hit IED? I left there like a couple minutes ago and personally inspected it myself, and there was nothing there. And I could see the other group coming. I could see them coming down the road. And somehow they didn't got an IED out there and hit them with it. I'm in their vehicle. And I'm like, I was out there on foot and nothing happened. I mean, that was an easy kill because I was outside the vehicles and everything. They were in their vehicles and stuff. And it blew the wheel off the lead vehicle that they use for the detection and stuff. And I was like, how in the world did that happen? I'm only at the next checkpoint. But so it's, just instances like that, and even times that they're bad, Lord brought us through. So that takes me into that was a 15-month. Made Master Sergeant and was selected for Master Sergeant while I was on that deployment. Came back, my unit wanted to still keep me to go to now to Afghanistan. So I've been my 4th deployment with that unit alone. And I was like, hey, I'm burned out. I need a break. So, but they pulled another fast one, went and contacted Department of the Army and said, nope, Lindsay wants to take a company here. He wants to take the reconnaissance company. They put me on orders for Fort Benning and they canceled them. And I called, and I was like, why did y'all cancel my orders? They're like, because your sergeant major said that you were getting a company and you wanted to stay. I said, I done been there for 7 years and now y'all want to send me on another deployment with them. No. And I was like, unless I call you, keep me on this assignment. And so I was like, I'll find a company there. So anyway, so I went there, took a company, did first sergeant time, and then of course deployed again with them. But that was the last one. That was the easy one, and here it resolved. Yeah, we pretty much hung out in Kuwait and waited to go in Iraq when that old uprising happened. But we ended up doing nothing. So it got ready to, but you remember all the U.S. forces had already pulled out, and we were the first ones over there after everybody had pulled out. And basically had all the equipment and everything and staged in Kuwait and getting ready to go right back in there. It was actually about 48 hours from going back over there. Y'all didn't know. I had a little code word for Tamika that I would use. And, tell her, basically she would have called y'all to say, hey, he's back in Iraq. Wow. Remember back then, Mama knew him too. Actually, I wasn't even going to tell Mama this time. But back in like OIF 1, I would... I couldn't say where I was at. Like when I was on the Syrian border, I'd find a Bible verse with Syria in it. And
I remember some of that. Yep.
Yeah, and I do stuff like that. So that takes me up into now I'm trying to get back to my house, everything, come back from that deployment, finally get orders to come back to Fort Campbell. And I bought this house in 2007 and I hadn't lived in it a year yet. Family did move around, we lived apart, different things, but I finally get back here and I'm like, okay, I can come live in my house, and it's Bought it in '07. It's 2013 now. And I get here, or right before I get here, I'm sorry, right before I get the orders, it ends up renting out. And then I get orders. So I'm like, great, I finally got orders. Now I can't go live in my house. So ended up getting an apartment here, everything, and then went through another problem set with renters. Got them out, was able to move in my house. But right as that's going on, I get orders to Fort Bliss. And I hadn't even signed into Fort Campbell yet. And my order is now to Bliss. I came out and started making, which was a good thing. So that was honestly, again, one of those things where I was not even going to compete. And I basically brought the family together. Hey, what do y'all want to do? And, you know, Damon wanted me to get out. He's like, I'm tired of you deploying. Tamika was like, I don't care, you know, we go wherever. And so that's what it was. I competed, and is because I was sitting at like 18 years in. So I was about 6 months from being able to drop my retirement at 18 and a half. And I remember like, I wonder if I would have made it. I just want to know if I would have made it. And I came out again on the secondary list and made it. So then that's when we had to make the decision, hey, am I going to go? But the Army made the decision for me and said, you're going to Fort Bliss, because it goes back in a long story with time requirements and stuff. But basically, if you deny, say, hey, I'm not going, then you have to retire. And then I would have been under 20, so I couldn't retire. So I had to go. And then, you know, of course, while you're at the academy, you know, got to pass different tests and everything. And then Lord brought me through that, because I hadn't really been doing the school thing too much, just a few credits. So I was not used to that. That was on a bachelor level and the curriculum. And so that was a shocker to me. I just went from literally, you know, infantry unit combat. Now I'm working with women. I'm with all these other MOSs until I'm writing all these papers. Like everybody think, you know, like all the infantry guys are, you know, now you got Air Force, Marines, everybody here now doing this stuff. And everybody used to telling people what to do and listening, but now you put everybody together, and I'm telling you, you got people like sergeant majors out there ready to fight in the hallway because I said do this. And like, who are you? We the same rank, you know. Folks are ready to throw. That was an interesting experience. Learned a lot there at Bliss, and it was cool getting ready, you know, being able to come out and holler at y'all in Arizona, 4 hours away. And of course, appreciate the visits, you guys coming down. That was an interesting experience, though. Man, I remember I got a 77.5 on one of those exams. We had to have at least an 8. So I got one question wrong. And again, man, literally when you're reading it, you're asking like, what is this thing saying? I mean, you have to know the material to extract what they're even talking about to really understand the question. I mean, it ain't no, you can Google it all you want. You can Course Hero, Quizlet, no, it ain't gonna be in there. They purposely, you have to know the material, even open book. And one exam, man, I failed and got a 77.5. And I remember I was calling mama, pray for me, all this stuff. Remember, I got promoted. You know, I hit all my marks, never even a bad counseling statement my time here in the Army.
Wow.
And, secondary zone for promotions, which is way ahead of people. And I failed one little stupid question on it was like three-hour exam, 20 questions. And I didn't get 80%. So you retest, and if you don't get 80% on the retest, then what the Sergeant Major of the Army was doing at the time is you automatically dropped from the course, and you got put on orders to the next thing smoking to Afghanistan, right?
Wow.
And then you automatically get what's called QMP. QMP is like if you got in trouble, if you fail an NCOES school, which that was an NCOES school, it automatically generated a report for the board. So next time the board convenes, which you'll be in Afghanistan after now you move your family to your new duty station, whichever that one is. And you remember, you just moved into Fort Bliss. Most people just got back from deployments and stuff. You move your family to Bliss and get them in school and stuff, and then you just failed two tests, 24 hours apart. So now you're like, hey, we're going to Fort Bragg now. And now you get to Fort Bragg. Oh, by the way, I'm going to Afghanistan in a month. And then while you're there, oh, by the way, I just got kicked out, you know. And the way the QMP works is Basically, they notify you saying, hey, you've been selected for QMP. You either retire or you can appeal it. Now, if you appeal it and you lose, you're done. You're out less than 30 days. And you don't get no retirement, no nothing, right? So most people are like, I'll retire, get out. So obviously there's a lot of stress, and I think I missed one that time. I got like a 97 and a half when I retook it. That was the closest I came after that. But so then of course they would graduate, which again, man, thanks for attending. And I meant to hit on this a little earlier, got distracted. Once I was saying just all the the Lord's hand and stuff, but also a great support network having in place with family like yourself. I didn't do it by myself. You have no idea some of the bad times and bad places, and just like those CDs, man, you used to make, like what a blessing they were. Just hundreds of times playing Christian music. There were places where didn't have church to go to. All I had was those CDs and my Bible and stuff, man, and different things. So, and I still got them to this day, man. Every letter I wrote, man, all that stuff sitting right there in the closet, man. Thank you for all the support and everything. So I said I couldn't have, got to where I was at without that, support network. So from there, graduated. You were there. That was at my academy graduation. That was definitely a highlight for me. Kind of really got reeled in because it's like, all right, I'm going to be a sergeant major. It's like you can't get no promote. That's E9, highest you can go in the Army. And of course, like all the ranks, I think I'm not ready for it, but again, got there. Lord gave me favor, man. I ended up, my battalion commander used to be in the unit I was in, didn't even know him. He was in a sister unit. We ended up knowing the same people, same deployment. So we clicked really well. I was an operations sergeant major, me and the command sergeant major, keep in touch to this day now. But we worked well together. And then he got selected for brigade command sergeant major position. And then he pulled me up to there with him. And then, and that's where I stayed up until I retired. So retired. And of course, he was at the ceremony, which I appreciate. And, I don't know if I mentioned it. It's even though it's been well over 3 years now, actually gone like 3.5 years, but almost look at the photo, but I still dream like every night almost I'm in the military still, and it's still like hard to sit there and think about, that is all over. And also for me, I think back like, man, it was just like a blur because it's like you run 100 miles an hour all the time. So I know y'all was probably like, I was getting on y'all nerves even when we go eat, and I'm like, hurry up, let's go. Because that's just what I'm used to doing.
You used to always say, we eat now, taste it later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything. So when I retired, it came to a screeching halt, man. I drove everybody crazy here. They wasn't used to me being at home so much. I wasn't used to being at home so much. And, and then, of course, that's why I had to kind of figure out, hey, what does Damon want to do now? Because everything has been about kind of everybody else, the mission, military, and it's like, what do I like to do? Yeah, I wasn't used to it. Wasn't used to being at home, nothing.
Well, I'm going to try to wrap this up in about 15 minutes. So we're going to go a little bit of rapid round with some questions. And I'm glad you said that, because that is a perfect segue. What has it been? First, well, I'll ask 2 questions, and you can lead right into it. How many tours did you do back to the Middle East? And what words of wisdom would you have for other men in the military, or men in general, but especially your experience being a military father?
4 tours Middle East, 3 in Iraq, OIF 1, OIF 4, OIF 6, 7, and Inherent Resolve, which is just Kuwait, my last one. Advice I will say is to be that godly man that we're called to be, lead our households and be an example When I was in church a couple weeks ago, it's kind of disheartening, but there was definitely a lot of truth to it. My pastor had mentioned, he was talking about the role of women though. And he was saying about, even though how Jesus had 12 disciples and, different roles the apostles and different people had, he was saying about, he was discussing the role like first ones to the tomb, were women and different things, different women were used and have carried the gospel as well. And I'm not talking about as pastors, no, I'm just saying in the ministry. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, how many of y'all had a praying mama or a praying grandmother, or somebody that took you to Sunday school and different things? And of course, everybody's like, yeah, it's like, but it was kind of sad. He was like, usually not, my daddy was on fire for the Lord or my granddaddy. And I was like, man, that's true, for a lot of households. But we are called to lead our family. So that's what I would say for any of them, first foremost, in the military or not, is to assume that role. And, we got to lead our families and, you got to have that relationship with Christ and walk that out and then walk it out in front of your family, which is, really hard because you know what, you can't fake it for 8 hours a day like you can at work, or put on they see you the good days, the bad days, but you got to walk it out and lead.
All right. If thinking about your role as a father, and I know how old your son is, so in a way, this is you may already do this, but I don't know. What advice, now that you look back, talking to your life changed so much really at 17 and a half, but yeah. What would you say to your, I won't say your 17-year-old self. Well, actually I will say, I'll tell you, what would you say to your 17-year-old self? And what do you also say to just a 17-year-old brother or a white kid? I mean, in general, man, that's a young man that's just out here right now.
If they were, you say if they were looking to join the military or?
Actually, no. I'm just going to say just 17-year-old dude.
Okay. Because I've had these conversations. I would tell them, hey, you getting ready to turn 18. One, I would hit on leaving the girls alone. So I was like, I don't care if y'all were dating in high school or whatever. She was in the 11th, or you were in 11th, she was in the 10th. But I've had the same conversation with my son. But once you turn 18, I don't care if she's 17 and a half, 17, 11 months. Hey, she's off limits till she turned 18 and explaining statutory rape. And I know different states done, but just make it simple, leave it alone. I don't care what her mama say, they all right with it or nope. The other one, I would, I've had conversations with my son early on, especially when we started driving or hanging out with other kids that drove and stuff. And then it's like, hey, you're at an age where you can be tried as an adult or, some at 17, like I was saying, at Murray Wright, we were talking about that they were doing at 17. Detroit was at least for those arrests, but I was explaining like, look, you got to pick your company and you don't want to get pulled over and there's drugs in the car, things like that. I don't care how much you think you trust them, they're going to take the rap or whatever, stay away from that stuff. And explaining about, consequences to what you think is a little fun or whatever else. We used to use the military, it can impact you joining the military, things like that. Obviously, premarital sex and having kids out of wedlock and thinking you're going to go to school and do all this stuff. So I told them, hey, you guys want to see it, write it down. These same people you think are doing all this stuff in school and got these big, long, acronyms of career fields they're going to go in. And I say 5 years, you're going to see them. They're going to have a bunch of kids talk about they're going back to school. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I was saying don't invest so much of your life decisions in pleasing these people, or I'm going to hang out with these people, or we're going to do this. Now it's like, you're not even going to talk to some of these people 5 years from now, and their life is going to go a whole different direction. And just letting them know, basically don't make permanent decisions for temporary
Mm.
problems or temporary situations.
I'm about to write that down. That's gonna be the title of one of those videos right there.
Yeah.
All right. If you would not, because so much of your life has been, if we go back to ninth grade, that decision to join the military. If you had not gone to the military, what do you think you would have gone into instead?
Probably law enforcement.
So some way, somehow, you're going to be carrying a gun.
Yeah, but believe it or not, now like I could go into it, I wouldn't touch it.
Really? Why is that?
So I'm glad I went the route I did. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you touch it now?
One is the pay, but two, I don't want to be bothered. Just at this point in my life, like when I went on a ride along back in El Paso, I knew then I didn't want to be a cop after that. Just riding around with Lloyd for 8 hours. I was like, I ain't doing that. At this point now, at my career, I was used to saying, hey, in a professional way, but you're dealing with senior leaders, and hey, this is what we got to do. We're bringing them on board, getting opinions, everything. People being a part of the plan and putting this thing together, putting talent management and things like that, being responsible, basically over 4,000 people, right? And putting this team together, making decisions, making plans, getting stuff moving and happening, meeting missions, and then you go on a ride along and people just sit here wasting your time, lying to your face, talk to you kind of way. And it's just like, I was used to saying, do this, go and, run Star Major, go and, stuff, getting done, just not babysitting and stuff. And that's always one thing when times I didn't like my job in the military is, when I had to babysit.
Okay.
Especially at the lower levels.
There's a saying that I've been going by actually from Muhammad Ali. And so I'm going to ask you this question. Muhammad Ali made the statement that basically, if you think the same way, you're the same man that you were 20 years ago, you've wasted that time.
Yeah.
So when you look back 20 years, how are you different? How do you view the world differently? Do you view the world differently in any way?
I view the world differently since I retired. So, and I know that we've had that discussion even down to the Kaepernick stuff and everything. You gotta remember my lens again at 17 when I joined. A month after my 18th birthday, I'm in Parris Island. 6 days after graduating high school, I'm down at Parris Island. Other than my 6-month break in service, that was it. I'm around the same type of personality, type A personality, folks, driven, but a lot of times got kind of a lot of the same social views, at least in not just the military, but say infantry. You're not typically gonna find somebody down there that be like, I hate hunting, I hate fishing, I hate being outdoors. I'm not competitive. No, that everything's a competition there. I mean, that's just the environment. So I'm learning now, even again, school has helped, different perspectives, and kind of my social network has changed to give me some other perspectives. So it has changed since I retired 20 years ago. I was definitely different because that was, where was that? So we're talking, I'm in Korea, 9/11 had just kicked off. I'll say a different person then. That was pre-combat. And in the words of my wife, I've changed every time I come home from that. So different changes. So I see, I've done a lot of changing, over that 20 years. A lot of different experiences since 01.
If I look at, and someone asked me this recently, if I look at our family, and it was 3 of us, and we have a sister that's 2 years younger, and we were looking at the really amount of, I'm going to use the term success that the three of us have had. I'll just say all three of us just aren't satisfied with just, I'll put it this way. None of us are satisfied with just being average. None of us are satisfied with just getting by. It's like, whatever we do want to go through. We want to be the top and the best. One thing I've always admired about you is that you have a tremendous ability to self-learn. Seems like whatever you put your mind to. If I was to probably tell everyone what you've done on a car or on a bike, it'd be like, oh, what school did he go to? And you just watch someone do it, you get immersed into it, and the next thing you know, you're an engineer. And so why do you think it is? Because when someone asked me about it, I had to think about growing up. I think if we look at our dad and even interviewing him on the show, there were some things that he could have done that he didn't do. And I think if we look at our mom, there are some things that she had the ability to do that she didn't do. I mean, I always wonder, like, wow, she probably could have been, an accountant for a Fortune 500 company or something like that, because she was always so good with numbers, always did the taxes, etc. But yet for the three of us, why do you think it was? And even looking particularly at you, everything you set out to do, and I can't help but smile on the inside. Maybe if we ever, well, I can't talk to D because it's every man's story, but I also refer to things that I've written in journals, man. I look back at it a year ago. Down on the mantle, I have a letter that I wrote in my journal that I think I wrote this back in the late to mid 90s, about moving out west. And I had it mapped out. So I got it sitting down there in a frame. Nice. Of like, wow, I thank the Lord that all of this worked out and that he still let this come to pass. Yep. Why do you think it is that the three of us kind of operate that way when we didn't always see it at home in our parents? I mean, I think if, we hear the stories of people like, oh yeah, my parents got a PhD. My parents always said that they were going to do, but we didn't necessarily see that. But why do you think we kind of always have that mentality?
I'm going to say some praying family members. So, I mean, that's really what I believe. I believe that Lord answered prayers that have resulted in where we're at today, where we didn't be, the impact or the magnitude of certain decisions or consequences. Things could have definitely, yes. Lord not had his hand there, went a whole different direction. At least I know for sure in my life. Kind of what I mentioned early on. I had made some mistakes, and at that point, Lord help me. It's bad when your mama say, mama always has something positive to say. I used to joke and say, she'd defend Adolf Hitler. No, he still may have got it right just before, if mama finds something, positive with,
That's why I blamed her for any decision that I made with a woman. Because it was like, why didn't you warn me? Because mama would be like, well, just because her mama was bad and she got abused, she, it's like, she ain't that bad.
Yeah, she'd have something, always positive.
Yep.
I forgot why I brought that up. I'm sorry.
No, it was just still how that your mama, that positive kind of, I guess whatever we were doing, mom always had something positive to say, and you felt that contributed to it?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I had lost my thought. I was going to make a specific point, but okay. Just capitalizing off that is, things could have went that's what I'm saying. She was always normally positive, but the one time I heard mama not have one of those answers was I done messed something up at work and got myself into a situation that could have went pretty bad. And we'll just say I was stuck. I was in the bad place. I remember I told her about it. And that was the first time I heard mama say, only Lord can get you out of this one. I was like, oh, Ma, you defend Hitler, know? So
that went from that song, somebody prayed for me, had me on my mind. That just went to Amazing Grace real quick, because that's all.
So I say, when even mama, get to that point, it's bad. So that's the only thing I can say is the Lord has had his hand on us for sure. And I've seen it countless times. You know, I remember one day I hadn't even told Tamika I was getting ready to leave for deployment yet. I just found out, and she's calling me saying the chaplain's here. I'm with this one girl, Christina, we knew from church, and it was one of her students, and her husband just got killed in Iraq. And I'm like, dang, I gotta go home and tell her I'm about to go to Iraq. I had just found out. And thing was, when I got over there, what I did is for that girl, since she couldn't go over there, I went to exact spot her husband was killed. And I met him in church and stuff. And make a long story short, he had never left the base before. He was literally, they got bus stops at this, there's a large base overseas. And, you always getting hit and mortar, rocket and stuff. And one landed right on the bus stop. Right. And I'm looking where it's at. I knew where the mortar came from and stuff. And but I went to the exact spot and I was thinking about it. I was like, man, this dude came out to division headquarters from done with his little, intel job, whatever, never even had to go off the base, just walked out, got on the bus stop, waiting on the little MWR bus to get him and go back to his combat housing unit, and got blown to pieces. And I had hundreds and hundreds of patrols, been in attacks, IEDs, everything. And, I'm still here, and so I don't know. I can only attribute it to Lord being merciful. It's got a different plan for us. We all got a different plan. So definitely nothing that, nothing due to me or doing anything in particular. I can say I'm just trying to walk in that grace, and there ain't no I in it. Things definitely could have gone a different direction.
Well, and I'm going to tie this into this last question, or maybe one more after this. But, growing up, I think of the three of us, what I'm really proud of you is that for so many years, man, we would talk, and when you were in the military, and you'll be like, blah, 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 blah. Well, you the one in college, you indeed the one with the degrees. And so I remember when you were younger, you always struggled in school. You always needed help with math and tutoring and stuff like that. And, again, I always knew how smart you were, because I knew we don't measure intelligence by some doggone report card, and I had certainly known by then, after all this student loan, that college was a hustle. But for you to now be working on your master's degree, how much, I guess, what does that mean to you? And that as we go forward, because now you're in retirement. I mean, you're where, man, all my friends want to be at now, and we a little bit older than you. What's this next stage of life? Because you really have lived two lives. You've done the military thing where most people are like, oh, I ain't going to school. I went to military not to go to school. And then now here you are working on your master's degree, looking at a profession. Man, you're doing both gigs. You kind of like the athlete that retires and now he becomes a successful broadcaster. What's next for Damon?
I appreciate the compliment. It's kind of by accident. So I basically felt, because you remember Brittany got her undergrad before me, right? So, which is, I'd rather, at the end of the day, my kids, that's the goal, to have them go above and beyond. We built that foundation, and, they come on top of that and plan for their kids. So, but it was kind of like, all right, I still wish I didn't waste those resources that I had, tuition assistance in the Army. I had 54 credits when I retired. And it's like, I could at least have my bachelor's done. So then the opportunity presented itself with voc rehab and, the VA picking up the tab on it. And I really didn't even plan to do the master's. I was like, because I didn't, know what I wanted to do yet. So kind of like everything else now, I just learned military, just put one foot in front of the other. It's like, I'll just do the master's. That was really kind of my goal. And then, but it was approved for the master's program. And I remember telling Tamika, I still say it, I'm just gonna keep doing it till it get hard. You're staying in the military, like when you're in a hard school, you never quit at night. You know, you always they say don't quit the next morning after you slept on it. So it's like stuff in the military. Like none of it's hard. It just sucks sometimes, and that's how the school is. And I really haven't done nothing hard yet. I got 3 classes left on my master's, and honestly, that's how I look. It's not really hard. It just kind of sucks, and that's kind of like how the academy was. Because I still don't want to do the work. It's simple, man. I got assignments due Thursday. The only reason I even you can kind of see it up here on the screen a little bit. Only reason it's up there is because them tabs is because our 30-minute window when we were doing this Zoom in between with the time issue. I was like, all right, I guess I'll knock some of this homework out, and I'll read some of these chapters. And I'll still wait, man. Like I set my paper up, everything, and I still don't feel like doing it. And I'll just do it. But it's like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get an A because I got 1 B so far in this grad program.
Wow.
And I was mad. I was mad. I had like an 88.9 or 89.3 or something. It was close.
Wow.
And I know it sounds funny coming from me, but actually, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna get a good grade. But it's not hard. I'm not gonna try no PhD, but
say that now. You say that now.
I watched Tamika because she's just finishing up she's got to do her dissertation, but she finished that. I guess whatever it is for that certificate. So that's all she's gonna be working on now. But I'm like, that's too much work. But, I didn't think I'd go this far. I just put one foot in front of the other, keep going, and I said I'll keep going to get hard. And, you get frustrated, and, but then I don't want to get, I don't want to lose. So. You feel like a quit, because you don't quit,
Yep.
man. You don't quit.
Yep.
So, that's kind of, I'll say that's the whole thing about it. But I don't know what's going to be next.
I was going to say, what do you see yourself doing 15, 20 years from now? You are, as one of our boys, Ed, said, and I guess he got it from a comedian. He said, man, I probably only got, if I do the average, I got 20 good summers left. So if you were to count your summers, I know that's kind of like, wow. If you count your summers, 10 summers from now.
I see myself in the VA working with veterans. I think my desire would be, to work with combat veterans, because obviously with the veteran suicide and things like that, one big complaint is those guys, trying to talk to a civilian therapist hired by the VA, can't relate. They may know the acronyms from hearing them over and over, but there's a difference, when you're talking to a combat infantryman, because one, the level of respect comes in the military just by, your job, the branch of service, so, hey, you got Air Force guys with PTSD, they may never left the base. I don't discount that because they doggone probably do got it. If they were diagnosed with it, they got it, that's fine. But even then, that even if they never left the base or whatever else, let's say they were getting rocketed and whatever else, and they're still having issues with that. That civilian VA lady may not understand that, or they'll feel she won't. Let alone, that guy that was a sniper, reconnaissance, special force, whatever, and like, hey, I've been on 1,200 missions, like myself, and this and this happened. And one, you feel stupid explaining it to them because you just feel like they can't relate, or if they acting like it, I don't know, man. It's just different if you're talking to someone that's been there, they understand, they got a little more credibility. You know what I mean? It's almost like, man, with your competition and you trying to do your coach, and prepping you, and they're fat and ain't never worked out. And they going to Jenny Craig or something, right? You're just like, really? I'm paying you, you're going to give me a contest shape. You've never been to the gym. No, I've never been to the gym, but I've read about it. You know what I mean? So that's kind of, yeah.
Well, as we close, is there anything that I haven't touched on that you certainly, as part of your story in your life? And I will ask one more question, and if there's anything you want to touch on, feel free. But my other question, last question is this. Again, you're the youngest person that I've talked to, and I really wanted, my desire was always to talk to older men, but I also would tease and say you my young big brother because of your level of maturity. Is there any age, just in your opinion, is there any age, as you've talked to so far more men than I have, that you feel like, what age do you think men really truly have a story?
Great question. I think we get it kind of late in the game. Like I tell my kids, I'm like, all right, you're 18. All right. You think you know everything, wait till you turn 21. You're going to realize you didn't know nothing, and then you're going to turn 25. I'm like, man, I thought I knew something at 21. Now, they finally, when you get like 30, you're going to start asking me questions.
Right.
So I'll say maybe for us men, earliest I would think, man, I could think I hate to put a number on it, but because I'm trying to think at 30 even, and I thought I knew. I mean, again, it's my network, everything was compartmentalized. So I was the oldest a lot of time as a platoon sergeant at even 30. But outside of that, my experience outside the military was limited. So my views were everything, shaped, military. But I couldn't see even if I wasn't in the military doing different things. I think of my friends that, only did 4 years and went out in the civilian sector, started, about 30, they were kind of ready to settle down, kind of ready to do something different. So, but I'm tempted to say more closer to 40, but wow. I'll say 30, maybe, if they got some life experiences.
Okay, I have to ask this. Sorry, I got to ask this then. If you can say that, as a man that got married at how old?
18.
When do you think a man should get married then?
Oh, me and my son, we've had this conversation plenty of times. And the advice I gave him was when he doesn't want to be selfish anymore. I said, but we kind of looked at definitely in his 30s. And what I mean by selfish is I basically, wanted him to look at, because he wants to get his charger and things like that. And I'm like, hey, are you prepared, for your wife to be like, hey, you need to give this up, trade this in because we need a minivan, or this and that, and these sacrifices. He's like, no, or he gotta have him some fresh shoes and stuff. He'd be putting them up for sale afterwards, selling his Jordans and stuff. I'm like, dude, I never had a pair of Jordans. I could get them now, but there's periods in my lifetime where I couldn't, get no Jordans. Y'all needed shoes. So, right. Those are decisions you're going to have to make. And even if you're ready to make them, to me, that's still not old enough, is when you're old enough to plan for those grandchildren, in the future. Because by the time you kind of figure it out, man, it's almost too late. Start, because even at 18 and struggling, I had my kid, Brittany, at 19. And about time I started saving and everything for college, and then you run into other obstacles, it's like for the average person, they're still trying to figure it out, with a career field. By that point, I'm at the tail. By the time she got to college, I'm on the tail last couple of years of my career, though. Plus that, GI Bill, other benefits and stuff. But I couldn't imagine at, say, 30, and now you have let's say, okay, at 18, you have a kid, and then at, 18, 20, 20, yeah, at 28, 30, 36, your kids, 35, 36, going to college, you kind of like, okay, at that point, this is what I definitely want to do with my life. You finally got that job, get a couple years in, and your kid's like, what about college?
Yes.
You're like, man, I
Yes.
just started, trying to get this, these loans paid off and those
Right.
things like that. So that's what I kind of tell them, like, once I didn't put a dollar amount on having this kind of money saved up and all, but when you're ready to plan for those things and you settle down, I don't like to use work career wise, but
Hmm.
a more stable job where, it's one thing for you to struggle, but don't go marry somebody, struggle, and then start having kids and struggling. And then, now all three of y'all struggling, three, four, five of y'all struggling. That's kind of how I kind of broke it down on my side. Just don't, just because it worked for me and your mama,
Mm.
they wasn't around for, that first, roach infested beach of apartments, in North Carolina that we had when we first moved in there. All I had was my military gear and one suitcase, and that's all Tamika had. Actually, we had suitcase, we had military duffel bags. Yeah, we
Yeah.
stuffed all our clothes in. That was it, man. I had $40, $80. That was it. We started off. So people don't see that side of it. And so, my like if my youngest at 16, now so I get married at 18, I'll be like, no, because she didn't, well, yeah, I got married at 18. No, you don't understand. There's a lot
Right.
more going on. There's a lot more struggles, and even my own daughter. I told her I didn't want her to date until after college. I was like,
I said
stay
the same thing.
school. I was like, once you got her degree out the way and stuff, then I was like, I was kind of hands off then.
Hmm.
You don't have no student loans. You got your bachelor's. Here's your car. You're set up.
Hmm.
When they graduate, get them a car and stuff. So, so they have something to start off with, where they didn't have to start off in debt with student loans. Start off trying to get a car to get to work and stuff. All right, now what you do with it from here is on you. But I wanted you to wait, and so you have a at least a halfway decent head start.
Yes. You made me think of something. Let me turn my lights on to help a little bit. A little bit. Um, I just want to throw in there real quick. It reminds me, I like how you said sacrifice. Because I was telling a man recently, I was like, if your wife, if your kids never get around telling you or anybody else, let me just tell you as another man how much I appreciate the sacrifice you're making for your family. Because I think it's similar to what we started out saying earlier when it comes to helping a woman. It's like something that's ingrained in us. We just do. And so many times we ascribe that to women taking care of the family. It's like, oh, well, that's just what a mom does. A mom's supposed to care, mom. But there is a sacrifice that a man makes when he has a
Yes.
family. There's a sacrifice a man makes when he takes on a wife, especially at a young age, because there are systems set up in place. For matter of fact, we'll even go as far as to say we can go back to going, with our sister getting Barbie dolls from Toys R Us. Um, they learn how to be a mom, even if it's being socialized how to be a mom. And they have other women help them be a mom. Church helps them be a mom. Society helps. And if they don't even want to, if they're a janky mom, they are even support networks to help them make a better mom. If they broke, we got WIC, women, infants, and children. But man, ain't nothing teaching a man how to be a dad. Nothing teaching a guy how to be a husband. And most churches, the men's group usually collapse after like 3 months of meeting regularly or something. So, it's nobody teaches that. And especially nowadays when you got 70% of black homes not having a black father in there, we got a whole slew of young black men not having that father there. So, man, you nailed it with that sacrifice. Because when you think of, as they say, there are no off days in pimping. There are no off days in being a father and a husband either. Because the day you start slipping is the day you might get that Jody letter, as in the military, where it's like, whether you 20, you got to survive and provide for that woman and children, or whether you 60, that woman is still looking at you like, what, no check coming in, it never stops. And I think guys, when they're young, they don't really get it. Don't stop, player. That's it does not stop.
And that's why I look so highly up to Uncle Donald and Auntie Sue, because again, at the time he had 7 kids, and then here I come at 15, another mouth to feed. Now I understand those struggles and everything. And remember, it was just him working back then,
Yeah.
and hey, and he's got me there as well. So 8 kids, and only one working, and leading that house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, let's close, man. I love you, brother. You've just been an amazing example to me down through the years. It's funny because just walking down memory lane with you, it brought back so many memories. And like I said, it's like, man, he was that old then? Because, it's almost like you either older than me or we the same age, because we hit so many things close to the same time, even though we were living two different type of lives. So to just now reflect on the amount of maturity that you had at such a young age, that you have now at such a young age, is remarkable, and definitely why I wanted to talk to you first, man. So I really appreciate you sharing, because your story, well, it was really funny. And I'm gonna leave a link, obviously, after this video, because y'all got to check out the video where we just talked about testosterone, because we didn't even get into the weightlifting aspect of your life. We didn't even get into the martial arts aspect of your life. We didn't even get to the automotive and racing side of your life, which I think is a testimony to the type of man that you are. You're not a one-trick pony. You're not just a dude that ran to the military to go, shoot at people and have guns, even though that's what we've been talking about all this whole time, was just your military career and your past. But man, there's so many other things that you're doing and have done, man. And that is tremendous. That is tremendous, because I put up a post recently about people being stagnant. You remember my boy Robert? He crushed my life when he said, looked at me, man, you just stagnant. And I was. One thing about you, brother, you have never been stagnant. And you could have been stagnant even retiring out the military, and still to this day you ain't stagnant. Man, that's remarkable, brother. Good job. Good job. And thank you for telling your story here today, man. Anything you want to close with?
Oh, hey, love you too, man. Thank you for all the kind words. Again, Lord's been very merciful, seeing me through each and every step, man. Has never failed, and just been right there. And again, and thank you and the rest of the family. This social strong family network. You guys are even down there. Some highlights for me, which was obviously Paris Island. Y'all right there. Sergeant Major graduation was another highlight. Of course, coming back from Iraq. Right here, made the front cover of the newspaper. I was right there. And then at the end of it, man, when I retired at the ceremony, I was right there, and I just can't begin to express my gratitude for that. How much it means to me. I was kind of alluding to this earlier, but it's hard to kind of think about. I guess I won't get choked up or nothing. To let it all kind of settle in that all those times and all. But then I got to remember, hey, I am retired. But just think, about there was some tough times, but again, you guys were there, and I appreciate, man, all the love, support, and advice over the years from you and all. Man, yeah, it's been, but I'm still learning, man. Always, my experience may just be a little different, but I'm always, looking up to you as my big brother for advice and bounce stuff off of you and everything. I'd have messed it up too many times to dare be arrogant or think that I'm beyond some correction or advice or anything. So I'm always seeking some more wisdom.
Well, I like what you said. That's probably the perfect way to end it, because you actually said my favorite Neely Fuller phrase, I'm still learning. I'm still learning. And Neely is 91. I think he just turned 91. Still saying, I'm still learning. So, all right, man, let's close this out. Thank you for the time, man. We're going to have you back again. Obviously, it won't necessarily be on the story segment, but obviously to pick your brain more on some weightlifting and certainly on the car side. because we definitely got to talk cars more on this than we have. So thank you, my man. I'm gonna stop recording now, brother. Thank
All
you.
right.